Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what you're about to witness is sick as fuck. Even if you are familiar with our previous project, please observe this briefing for your own safety. For optimal viewing experience of the following, please ensure your headphones are on and any snacks available are on hand. All electronic devices must be switched on and unstowed in a comfortable viewing position. In the event that this video turns out to be 2 skits, be sure to familiarize yourself with the like button. Links to the creators' channels have been deployed down below. On behalf of Zeniverse and the rest of these cracked guys, it is our pleasure to present to you this absolutely mad collaborative production. Please enjoy your viewing experience.
2008. The year of Barack Obama, the Wii's ever-continuing domination, and E3 still being relevant. 2008 also saw some of the most influential games of the 7th generation come out, and I'm here to cover them. Or well, me and about 24 other YouTubers. You might be thinking, is this really every single game from 2008? The answer is no, of course not. There's like over 700 releases, including gems like Speed Racer, the video game, Kung Fu Panda, Legendary Warriors, and Buzz Quiz TV. Regardless, we've narrowed it down to a pretty respectable shortlist of some of the most popular, influential, and relevant releases of the year. Or at least as relevant as something from 2008 can be. Once again, I went around and harassed any YouTuber that would listen for even a single second. Bet they really regret accepting that friend request now. I gave them complete creative control over their chapter, whether they wanted to make a more serious analysis style video or a jokey shitpost. So sit back, rip open a half-air filled bag of chips and crack open a cold one, whether you're on your own or with the boys.
Ryan Leo.
Hey, so Zeniverse stuck me in Blender here against my will to get some stragglers out of the way first. These are the games that no one chose, so I get to do them. I have not played 90% of these. Metal Gear Solid 4. I'll cut to the chase. Nobody wanted to do this one out of fear of the fan base, but as someone who hasn't played it, I will say it looks cool. I hope you had fun playing it. Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe is the spiritual predecessor to Injustice, where NetherRealm was like, these DC guys kinda cook, and made a game about just them, but better. Midnight Club Los Angeles is the 4th game in a series made by Rockstar that I've never heard about. Just play Burnout Paradise. Prince of Persia 2008 is the one where they were given a little too much creative freedom, but the gameplay itself is actually not that bad. It's a pretty good platformer. Lego Batman 1. It's perfect. You can watch that up there if you want to hear about it and every other Lego game from last year's project. Haze. Just play Crisis. The Incredible Hulk. I'm gonna read this as Zeniverse wrote it. Timothy Clancy, not Tom Clancy, Timothy Clancy's Rainbow Six Vegas 2. Honestly ahead of its time and worth playing to this day. Fable 2, absolutely amazing in every way, 0 flaws. Play it and every other Fable game right now. Motorstorm Pacific Rift. Another car game. Bigger wheels. And it has bikes. Okay. Mercenaries 2 World in Flames. It's just cuz, but you're white. Alright, that's the end of the ADHD segment. The rest of the video is for people who put podcasts in a tab somewhere, then forget about where it is and what the sound is coming from.
That boy Aqua.
Now I know we've had some discussions of great games that came out this year, but I'm under the impression we're lacking some superhero classics. Context means a lot when it comes to this next title, because while there were some great Spider-Man games to release in the 2000s, the unkind release of Spider-Man 3 was a proper fracture in the webhead's armor. Now imagine the pressure that Shabba Games was under when developing Spider-Man Web of Shadows, this time based on an entirely original story, an original idea. And while it wasn't received too well on launch, in recent years many have become aware of just how good we've had it, especially when compared to the releases to come after. Many consider Web of Shadows underrated, and while I agree that it once was, I feel that it now gets its flowers regularly. So allow me to remind you of how good this game is, and if you haven't played the game, then congratulations, you can skip this part of the video and play the game. Well, play it if you can get your hands on it. You can't purchase this on any online platforms, and the odds of scooping up a digital copy are equally out the window. But it's okay, I have some other recommendations that came out in 2008, like Pirates of the Burning Sea, Grand Theft Auto 4, are great for being able to steal things in order to enjoy a life that is ultimately at the mercy of a society that sells you a false dream. Anywho, Web of Shadows might not look as good as other games released in 2008, but stack this game up against anything else when it comes to animations and it's no contest. Every movement in this game is fluid and flows between each other like water, and it even strikes a balance between looking straight out of a comic book and yet not completely leaving the realm of realism. Web of Shadows' primary gameplay mechanic is the black suit, which, as if to apologize for its integration in previous games, is not only around for almost all of the story, but offers a completely different moveset. When fighting in the red suit, you punch with speed, but hold back your strength like Peter would. Yet in the black suit, you unleash your full power. Each attack comes with the power of a semi-truck, and eventually the tendrils you use can allow you to crowd control far better than the red suit. Accompanying these visuals is an iconic soundtrack, but also some voice acting that leaves much to be desired, specifically earplugs. I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but I'd be lying if I said that Peter's voice here was not the most memorable purely for its annoying, whiny tone, which, while fitting for the character, was done far better in earlier iterations like Ultimate Spider-Man. Everyone else's voices work fine enough, and maybe that's because they are actually good, or it's put next to Spider-Man, which elevates it by comparison alone. But of course, with the hardware limitations of the time, many don't care about how the presentation holds up. I mean, these graphics were great at the time, sure, but there's no doubt that with today's standards, Web of Shadows shows its age, but its gameplay is evergreen. Web swinging offers freedom unlike the following games, which would opt for more cinematics and accessibility above all, and while that approach isn't a bad thing, the higher skill ceiling presented here is far more rewarding for longtime Spider-Man fans. Swinging begins slow, and it's in this beginning phase that you can get a grip on the controls. Exiting a swing at different angles will produce height or forward momentum, and the usual suspects like web zipping, web climbing, wall running, they're all here and it's all familiar. The true depth comes from the way these moves flawlessly cooperate with each other to create swings that look just as good as future games, yet being more rewarding because you yourself had to make it happen. The greatest issue with the swinging is that the game makes no effort to explain how deep the system is. I assume this was an acknowledgement to previous game successes, as any seasoned Spider-Man player will know how to traverse, but things like swinging on poles are never brought up despite adding considerable flair to the way you swing around. As you move, you can collect spider tokens that'll increase your speed, which allows smooth progression in not only speed but comfortability in the mechanics. By the end of the game, you'll be virtually flying across the map, and it's truly an exhilarating system that rewards skill with eye candy and efficiency. But traversal is not only done through swinging, as it's done through combat as well. Web of Shadows is one of the most influential Spider-Man games, and it's all because of the web strike. The web strike is presented as an attack, but that is not entirely true. Rather, it's a means of traversal. You use it to transition from swinging to fighting and then back to swinging. You could toss someone in the air and web strike them, to then transition the fighting from pavement punches to air-based kicks, allowing for dynamic combat that flows from any surface to another. Basic combos eventually become large sweeping symphonies of strikes and slashes, and each suit has their strengths, or so it seems. On the surface, it appears the black suit excels at crowd control while the red suit is built for isolating targets, hence why the webs can leave enemies stuck while you focus on others. But an interesting take on the black suit in this game is that it is significantly better than the red suit. Its tendrils allow crowd control to be a breeze, and the many beatdowns and ability to throw vehicles makes it ideal for one-on-one fights too. Boss fights crumble beneath your symbiotic feet, and nearly every aspect of the game is of little challenge. I don't see this as a downside, as this serves as a power fantasy and is accurate. The entire point of the black suit is to test Peter's morals. Yes, the suit makes everything easier, but is it worth the risk of corrupting his mind? That's a question you yourself answer through the many choices in the story, which result in two different endings. The moral dilemmas present are as surface level as it gets, and honestly, it's the story's weakest aspect. These feel entirely tacked on, and that's because, as the developers would admit, it was. Regardless, the black suit is handled well and is not exclusive to Spider-Man. Boss fights against Venom are abundant and large, but each regular villain has a rematch down the line with a newfound symbiote of their own, and are high points as they often feature unique set pieces, ideas, and take advantage of your many abilities. These fights are the game. Everything in between for the most part feels like side content, and often it's because it is. In between missions, you'll be tasked with doing a number of side content, and the largest issue is that at times, the main quest can feature similar objectives that make anything in between the mountainous peaks of the boss fights feel like filler. What doesn't help are the actual side quests that see you repeating actions for, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of times. It leads to a game that is inconsistent throughout, and yet, in memory, is incredible. Because of course you'll remember the Kaiju Venom fight and forget saving 100 civilians. The story is forgettable in its individual moments, but the set pieces are what carry the game, and its atmosphere is amazing. It's clear what moments were given the most thought and care. Ultimately, time was a big factor with this game's development, and I firmly believe that if given more time, we could have had a masterpiece on our hands. But instead, what we have is a highly regarded, highly influential Spider-Man game that, while not the best, deserves respect, and at least a playthrough for any fan of the character.
Pixl. ¿Quieres?
Burnout Paradise is one of the most recognizable games from when EA knew how to have fun, and I've been summoned to summarize this game. So, I've taken the liberty of playing this game for a while and getting familiar with it. It's not a complex game, but it has enough going to where I can reach the minimum mark for this segment. With that being said, I invite you on this high-speed adrenaline rush across Paradise City. Buckle up, Paul Walker. We're just getting started.
Huh? Fuck yeah.
Hey, yo, keep in here. White people be like, slow down, everyone. Calm down. It's not a race. Stop right. Black people be like, enemy spotted. Bruh. What the fuck was that? Oh, shit.
Okay, so we get to start right away with the learner's permit. Let's go ahead and start it up. No. We are turning that off. I need that VAT YouTube paycheck. Lawsuit threats aside, let's go ahead and move on to the events. I'll be going over these in whatever way I recorded them because they're fucking everywhere. Marked man. Marked pliers? Here we get hunted by the feds with their only goal to get us pulled over straight into a concrete pole. Tries you might to kill them, they always come back, sometimes even multiplying on their own. I didn't know cars were capable of mitosis. If you beat them to the finish line, congrats, you get away. For now. It's not too hard to explain what a race is, unless you, my lawyers have advised me not to finish this joke. Clown activity aside, races are simple. You need to finish before everyone else does. A well-known idea with the twist of having no checkpoints or time limits. Fun fact, you can cheese these races by just boosting and stunting. I mean, what else is there for me to show? What, you expected some NASCAR footage? I guess now would be the perfect time to mention this is one of the few driving games that requires you to get familiar with the city, since you only have a map but no GPS or waypoint system. Burning routes are... they're for nerds. You can do them only with a specific car to get an upgrade for that specific car. I'm just not gonna do these. They're just boring. I'm sorry, man. Easily the best game mode. It's a joy to see a little red dot on the map that hasn't been touched yet. That sounded wrong. I have become God's drunkest driver. For all the officers watching out there, it's not us drunk drivers that cause the stigma. It's the drunk crashers. They have a PDA thing for oak trees on the side of the highway.
Real quick, would you mind putting the entire knowledge of the unknown universe into my head?
You're probably asking by now, what are these events for? Well, it's so we can go from Junior Cop to Class D, then C, and now you will witness the process of obtaining a B tier license.
What the dog do?
If I wanted to, I could get the A-Class, Elite, and then Burnout license, but I don't have time to record 40 more hours of footage as it stands when I'm writing this.
Of course, Big Macs for bigger men.
Before you go, I want to wrap up and give my thoughts on this game. Complaints. The Pioneer is a big hunk of strong metal, but it's also a piece of shit. Might as well be driving the fucking rock from SpongeBob.
That's just a stupid boulder. It's not just a boulder. It's a rock. SpongeBob! Will you forget the stupid pirate?
Speed cars, or cars that only use a boost when it's filled, are dumb and garbage, and I never use them. Also, DJ Atomica, or whatever his stupid name is, does not know when to keep his fucking mouth shut, and tells me things I already know like a demented father. Anti-complaints. The stunt-type cars are very good, very easy to gain boost for, and if you get one that's tanky, that's gonna be your goat for a long while. Second, the crashes I got to record in this game probably kept me coming back the most. Last but not least, Showtime mode. One of the most satisfying parts of the game is where I get to make insurance companies go broke, aka living out my fantasy. I only found out about this game mode at the end of my recording sessions because of some Armenian man who first munches on some lavish and then recites the entire history of his country to me unprompted. He then tells me I can click the two front bumpers on my controller to engage the game mode. Pretty cool. To conclude this summary, I give BeamNG To conclude this summary, I give BeamNG Drive a solid 12 out of pack. A very good time waster. A proper simulation to prepare you for the American roads. I wish you all well. Please, drink and drive responsibly.
Monty Zander.
I always start with the eyeballs. While dogs are dogs, cats, because they're so withdrawn, you know, you naturally attribute human thoughts and feelings to them.
You'll get one of 4 exclusive Garfield push toys.
I'm so adorable, it's scary.
He's happy to see you.
The American Express card. Don't leave home without it.
And that's Garfield.
In 1989, Jim Davies, the creator of Garfield, wrote a cold, lonely Garfield strip. It follows Garfield waking up in his home, searching desperately for his owner John and his dog Odie. He realizes that they're not here, that he's alone. And as that realization dawns on him, the words of Jim Davies creeps into the comic strip, sitting eerily in the corner. You have no idea how alone you are, Garfield. Garfield on PS2 is like that.
You've eaten my carefully prepared lasagna.
The game was developed by Code Monkeys, a team you might recognise because of their groundbreaking work on Shrek Treasure Hunt and Goofy's Funhouse. The game opens with John giving Garfield a bollocking. We've been wrecking stuff around the house. Oh no, so John's ordered us to keep the place tidy while he's at work. Or he'll put us on a diet. But classic, Lasagna Cat falls asleep and while he does, Odie has destroyed the house. Armed with a vacuum cleaner, Garf needs to pick up random items around John's home and put them back where they belong before time runs out. Oh, time, by the way, is 8 hours. There's a counter and everything. That's pretty lenient, because really you can finish the game in 4 hours. But even that is asking a lot, because at least an hour of that will be figuring out how the hell the mechanics work. Garfield will walk up to objects that look out of place in the house and suck them into the vacuum. He then finds a suitable spot where that item goes and poops it back out. Poop. Sounds pretty simple, right? Well, it should be, but you can't aim the vacuum, so you need to awkwardly line Garfield up around an object. Some of the sparkling items aren't actually suckable, and the images that represent them in the bottom left-hand corner are such a pixelated mess that this all feels like a cruel joke by the designers that is so nightmarish we should add this game to the leagues of Garfield creepypasta that haunts the internet.
I no longer require eyes, John.
Garfield can only carry 3 items at a time, with a chest sitting in the hallway for us to store them, like there's an attempt to bring resource management into the game, but I'm not sure what purpose this serves aside from stumbling down these stairs and sitting through a loading screen to complete each room. That chest also lets us save, but good luck with that because trying to save the game is like playing Russian roulette. Sometimes it'll force a crash, sometimes it won't, sometimes it will just buckle the game for 2 to 3 minutes. Completing each room means Garfield gets a key to unlock more rooms, like John's bedroom. I don't know why these rooms are locked, because that implies that Odie has opposable thumbs that let him break into John's bedroom, rearrange all of the items, and then hide the key while Garfield was napping at the start. I'm a dog person, so I wouldn't usually assume Odie is this Machiavellian entity, but he stalks you through the house, hunting for Garfield, trying to stop us from putting things back to normal. Wait, what's happening? Odie, call off your furball. You little wank. You little bastard. Will you get lost? Odie.
I wonder what goes there.
Okay, you might think, this all sounds awkward and janky and frustrating, but it can't be all bad, right? There's gotta be some depth here, maybe there are puzzles. Well, there are. There's open drawer and move thing. There's an attempt to do some form of platforming here, but Code Monkeys have heavily leaned into the fact that Garfield's a chunky, fluffy boy. There's no double jump, and the single jump we are given brings him maybe 2 inches off the ground tops, so whenever you need to clamber up on top of furniture, your gameplay will look like Garfield's having an epileptic fit. Garfield's fatness could be mechanical and add a bit of buoyancy to how we move. There could be a belly bounce that gives him extra height, but there is nothing of interest here. And when all is said and done, do you want to know what your reward is?
You did such a great job. I'll have to give you more chores to do.
There are going to be a fair few hidden gems on this list, but in news that will surprise absolutely no one, this ain't one of them. It's a Monday in a sea of Fridays. So I really wish that could be the end of this, but I have something to tell you. When Zanyverse reached out and asked me to join his 2008 games project, I thought, hell yeah, Zany seems cool, the Discord's got some good chat, SirHellfire's here, Fizhy, that boy Aqua's doing it, love that guy's work, even when he's wrong about Gotham Knights. So I jumped straight into the game list to see what was left, and turns out all the good shit was gone. Dead Space, gone. Fable 2, gone. Spider-Man Web of Shadows, that boy Aqua got to it first, more like that son of a bitch. All that remained was Garfield. That's all it said. Garfield. 8 little letters. May Garf have mercy on my soul. So I booted up the first PS2 game I found with that name, played it, made the video, and sent it off. I was free, did a cool thing for some cool people. Hell yeah. But here's the problem. The first PS2 game I found, the one called Garfield, the one I suffered through, wrote about, recorded, and edited a video for, it didn't release in 2008. It released in 2004. Garfield World Lasagna Tour was the game that Zany meant.
Okay, well it's really for reasons of stomach, but what? Odie, my cake!
So, here's my thoughts on that piece of shit. Thank you for your time.
Vexas.
Welcome gamers, one and all, to post-apocalyptic Utah, where the only people on this earth are 12 clinically insane car-obsessed bogans with a death wish. While FlatOut Ultimate Carnage was released in 2007 for the 360, it was also released on Steam August 2008, so suck my nuts, that's the version I'm playing. FlatOut Ultimate Carnage embodies that takes way too much effort to say. Okay, from now on, FlatOut Ultimate Carnage is just gonna be folk. Folk is a remake of the legendary FlatOut 2. The franchise embodies the attitude of early 2000s punk edgelord gaming perfectly. If your friend Ricky has this on his shelf, it's probably sitting right next to Tony Hawk's Proving Ground. Of all the entries in the series, Folk has the strongest aesthetic. Grungy, constant explosions, gruesome, not deaths, definitely not deaths, he's perfectly fine. Look at him, he's back in his car again. And a kick-ass copyrighted soundtrack. That's great, but why should you play it? Well...
just money and greed. Drawing borders, lines on a map we don't need.
New tracks, new cars over its predecessor, a kick-ass soundtrack, absolutely off-the-wall stunts, demolition derby, time trials, ultra-tight movement, and did I mention the kick-ass soundtrack? Cause it has a kick-ass soundtrack. Really wild tracks designed to maximize damage to the vehicles using it, also known as Career Mode, Quick Race, basically this game's version of instant action. Look at this car, school bus. If this game had any more testosterone in it, I wouldn't be able to fit through the doors of my local medical dispensary. Look, I gotta make this review at least 4 minutes, and normally with racing games that would be a problem because they have about as much depth as a Twilight fanfiction, but this game accounted for a significant amount of my childhood. Just like last year's LEGO Indiana Jones review, Folk absolutely sweeps. The sense of chaos and speed is
substantial.
Not only that, but this game carries with it an incredible level of violence for a racing game. The blast out mechanic alone is enough to make any middle-class white mother queasy. Just listen to that scream.
You may be wondering, what makes this game Ultimate Carnage for Xbox and PC circa 2008, and not, say, BeamNG Drive? Well, little known fact, much like drunk driving,
4 times over the limit,
FlatOut actively encourages Ultimate Carnage by awarding you nitrous for crashing. Yeah, this game is optimally played by reducing your highly tuned street racing vehicle into a soapbox.
200 bees.
200 bees.
If you're crossing that finish line with more than 2 wheels, you're doing it wrong. Crash into moving cars, crash into stationary cars. If it's not bolted to the ground, it will give you nitrous. And if it is bolted to the ground, it will give you nitrous. Any Folk veteran worth their salt will be feeling a dopamine hit right about now. This is what we live for. Second place, full nitrous, and an unsuspecting victim.
Oh, that's the good stuff.
In this clip, I'm about to finish the last lap, and I'm still chasing down first place. I have enough nitrous to catch up to, but then I would have to battle them neck and neck and risk being pushed back down into second as I finish the race, and I don't have a lot of space in the racetrack left. Staying on brand, Folk presents a solution to this problem, taken directly from the drunk driving racing lexicon. The optimal choice to make here is to wait for to slow down for the last corner. Slam on the nitrous and give them the Princess Diana treatment. Holy shit. Some of the few of you with a cranium that's grown past the size of a walnut have noticed that this maneuver has replenished our nitrous. And that's how Folk proves a higher blood alcohol level does not impair your ability to drive. Not only that, but Folk is a game mode dedicated to being even more reckless in the Demolition Derby. An arena mode where the occupant's only goal is to create as much damage to your car as possible. And a game mode that puts you as a volunteer for a research facility tasked with figuring out what driving was like before 1968. Speaking of crashes, I like explosions. Do you like explosions?
The resources for improvised explosive devices can be sourced from your local hardware store. Mail pipe bombs to Zanyverse. Send pipe bombs to Zanyverse. He's not released me from the basement since our last collaborative project.
Hello? Currently swerving through traffic right now, so apologies if I have to cut this short, but I really hope that you enjoyed what I made for you here. I put my main video on the back burner for about 3 weeks, and in my very objective and unbiased opinion, watch where you're driving, cunt! That's going to be a very entertaining video, so go subscribe to my main channel, Vexas, to catch when that drops. Oh shit, the cops. Okay, I gotta go. Enjoy the rest of your video.
Like Yoshi.
War is fun, especially if you are a first-person shooter developer. And no first-person shooter IP is more iconic and infectious, like a bad case of crabs, than Call of Duty. But we find ourselves in the year 2008, the year where Treyarch break out of their hypnol-induced coma, nick the COD 4 engine, and begin producing quality content. The result is possibly one of, if not the best COD game on the market. That game is World at War. A game with the most abrupt, startling, and eerily horrific opening menu I've ever seen. A game that doesn't necessarily ease you into the intricacies of its many themes and tone, rather preferring to slap you in the face with it. I mean, you know something's up when the first 5 seconds of the game shoves a swastika in your face and forces you to watch war crimes as its fucking opening cutscene. The campaign can be split into 2 segments. Like any red, white, and blue-blooded American, you're tasked with invading a foreign land over some dispute about oil. And the Japanese are no fucking joke. You're immediately flung into the deep end, barely surviving a casual opening torture sequence before being forced to confront booby traps, snipers in the trees, and bonsai charges, lying in wait for you in the grass. It's nice for once not to have a World War II game centered around the bloody Normandy invasion again, unlike some other games. And World at War makes full use of its setting. The Japanese don't fight like any other enemy encountered in the series, utilizing their own tactics and using the environment to their advantage. You never know when or where they're going to strike, and when they do, you remember it. That being said, the lack of physical cover and the infamous insistence on grenade spam makes the Pacific campaign the hardest in the game. Sometimes unreasonably so, if you're an idiot like me and decided to record this segment on fucking veteran difficulty. Regardless, the Pacific campaign focuses more on gameplay variety and Kiefer Sutherland's beautiful balding head, whereas the other campaign... Where the Soviets are concerned, you know a bloodbath is not far around the corner, and the Soviet campaign is no exception. Whereas the Pacific Theater focuses primarily on gameplay and the Japanese as a unique foe, the Soviet campaign is grounded largely in brutal urban battles, following the journey of its small but incredibly charismatic and incredibly memorable characters. Viktor fucking Reznov is the heart and soul of this game, and his journey from crawling through the shadows like a rat in Stalingrad to exacting ultimate revenge in Berlin turned this game from another generic yearly release into a work of art. The Soviet storyline masterfully juxtaposes the Nazis' brutality in Stalingrad with the Soviets' ruthlessness in their march towards Berlin, with each side's actions and even Reznov's own dialogue muddying the distinctions between the two.
Mark my words, comrade. One day things will change. We will take the fight to their land, to their people, to their blood.
We see how things have changed, my friend. Now it is their land, their people, their blood.
The atmosphere and soundtrack is also at its strongest here, the Red Army Choir following you wherever, whenever. And if we're all being honest with each other, those guitar riffs interspersed between go real fucking hard. Overall, the campaign of World at War is an indisputable masterpiece, one I frequently find myself going back to. It's nothing groundbreaking, but in terms of what it does, I'd say it's a perfection of its craft. Shooting is sharp, visceral, and responsive. The environments are varied, atmospheric, and beautifully crafted. The storyline, while understated and easy to miss, is a fascinating and authentic gaze into the bloodiest conflict in human history.
So what about the multiplayer?
Yeah, it's absolute crack. I mean, it's the Call of Duty multiplayer, what else do you expect? Everyone runs around the map throwing shit at each other, spraying and praying until one of them is lucky enough to hit one another. I will admit that once again the gunplay is quite satisfying, but it's hard to get a full bead on it when the gameplay is just this coked out of its arse. But hey, at least it's still alive with an active population, even if all of the servers are these kooky crazy private 50 XP servers. But then again, the game is like 15 years old, so... Zombies needs no introduction. I mean, it does if you're going off the absolutely psychotic heroin binge that is the later entries of the series, but focusing on World at War exclusively, the Nazi Zombies game mode is a pleasantly simple, uncomplicated experience with a finely crafted, disgustingly pungent atmosphere, with each of the 4 maps offering diverging experiences with varying mechanics and features catering to varying playstyles. As basic as Nachter on Toten is, I often find myself revisiting it for that exact reason. Verrückt is fucking terrifying because good lord these boys are fast!
fast. And Deriz is iconic as the culmination of everything Treyarch learned in crafting and perfecting the base zombies formula up to that point, until they ruined it with Black Ops 4. Not much to say about the World at War Zombies experience that I'd want to spoil for a potential video on COD Zombies as a whole. It's good, clean, round-based zombie killing fun, perfectly cementing itself as the cherry atop of the World at War cake. Anyway, that's been my allotted 6 or 7 minutes. My name is Black Yoshi and this has been my TED Talk. Anyway, back into the pit I go. Goodbye! Special thanks to Zanyverse for allowing me to forever stain his name and his character with this god-awful segment. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of the video.
GiantPokeSpyro.
Final Fantasy VII has got to be the most influential game of its series, and I think that goes to show with the fact that there are more than 7 spin-offs. Some are great, some are pretty stinky, but I think Crisis Core very much falls onto the former end of that spectrum. Released to most of the world in 2008, Crisis Core told the story of Soldier First Class Zack Fair in the form of a prequel. I think most people would agree that Final Fantasy VII is a game that deserved further exploration into the events prior to its main story. Each main character has an intriguing background that ties into one another, so it's safe to say that this game's existence was warranted. Rather than another turn-based console release, Crisis Core was an action RPG on the PSP. The word action in very large air quotes. The PSP game was far more slow and clunky, expectedly so. There always was a large emphasis on magic and abilities, however, paired with some real-time combat, timed rolling being a crucial thing to master. Crisis Core marries the two genres pretty efficiently, achieving innovation while still staying faithful to the series' roots. It's easy to see this game's influence when taking a look at modern Final Fantasy, in which action combat has become the series' norm. I should also mention the RNG aspect, which again feels like a love letter to the turn-based roots. In the top left corner, you've got the DMW, which of course stands for Department of Motor Vehicles. I remember being a bit intimidated upon my first impression of this UI, but the nice thing about the DMW is you don't have to do anything. It just kind of perpetually rolls as you play and grants you random buffs. That might sound a little problematic, but man, I'd be lying if I said I didn't absolutely love getting like 3 limit breaks in a row. So while dated, Crisis Core battles are still a joy, and the reunion quality of life improvements are very welcome additions. And to be honest, there isn't a lot of gameplay outside combat. The actual areas are pretty much just hallways with enemies. The game really only lets you walk like 2 steps before being interrupted by a battle or cutscene, which I wouldn't really have a problem with if the story was actually good. Okay, that's a bit harsh, but considering that the narrative is the main appeal of this game, I think calling it underwhelming is fair. Zack Fair. I believe Crisis Core's story is roughly a 50-50 split between the good and the bad. Half the time, it's this genuinely wonderful insight into the past of beloved characters. And the rest is this cryptic JRPG stuff that the genre is notorious for. Let's get the stinky story bits out of the way so we can end on some praise. Much of the narrative focuses on this old group of friends that have since had a falling out. Those being Angeal, Genesis, and Sephiroth. Sephiroth is, of course, the GOAT, but I'm not gonna pretend like Genesis and Angeal do anything for his character. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad he's in the game. The Nibelheim mansion sequence was incredible, but again, that's only because it's pulled directly from FF7. Pretty much everything new story-wise, albeit a few exceptions, are convoluted as hell and feel like rejected Advent Children plotlines. All the lore surrounding Genesis and Angeal is so poorly explained and leaves the story feeling like a collection of random things happening for the sake of shock value. I've gone through these scenes multiple times and I still could not tell you what kind of loveless Act 37 BS this guy was going on about. Aside from all that though, I did enjoy quite a few aspects of this story. Zack was such a surprisingly fun protagonist. Given that Cloud was under the impression that he was Zack, I always thought Zack would be an edgelord as well. But nah, my guy is so goofy and it's awesome. Also, he's like always doing squats literally every spare second he gets, so respect. Similar to Yuffie in Intermission, Zack's humor was such a nice change of pace, and seeing him interact with everyone's favorite party members made me appreciate that tenfold. The highlight is of course him and Aerith, who have the most adorable little romance, which made the ending that much more effective. Then we see him act as the older brother to the insecure Cloud, and oh, it makes my heart melt, dude. I love the scene in the end where Cloud is too nervous to talk to Tifa, so Zack gives him some relationship advice, and it's just so wholesome, man. Come on.
on! So all in all, I'd say Crisis Core is a great game. Despite its shortcomings, I'd still recommend it to any fan of the series. If you're not really an FF7 guy though, I can't promise it's up your alley. Thanks for having me on the show, Zany, and here's to the next review.
Snugboy.
Crisis Core? GPS? Really? Crisis Core? No. Let me show you a real game from a real console from a real year. Okay, it's the same year, but let's talk about
Mario Kart Wii!
Apart from Wii Sports, this was the definitive game to play while your parents pre-divorce argue in the kitchen. Okay, I feel like I made a very terrible first impression. Hi, I'm Snugboy, and I want to talk about Mario Kart. Before it popped up in the Mario movie, before it existed on your Nintendo Switch video game hybrid portable console, before this guy in Tokyo crashed into a ramen shop, there was one game in the series that everyone had. Mario Kart Wii. If you weren't there for it, the mid-2000s Wii craze was crazy. Everyone had a Wii, and I'm not meaning every gamer had one, but every household had a Wii and a copy of Mario Kart, and that terrible plastic wheel. Bro, I don't want to use that. So, what was so special about Mario Kart Wii? Well, it's Mario Kart. It had been a great and fun series for 16 years by this point. But from the deep depths of my nostalgic memories, there was something just particularly special about this one. Still, it has been 15 years, and Kevin Rudd is no longer the Prime Minister of Australia, so why don't we boot it up and explore it together? This used to excite me so much as a kid. The Wii's big gimmick, of course, was the motion controls, and they really do an excellent job at selling that in this trailer. Although, I always had to wonder, what is Peach's beef with Luigi? Girl, spill that gossip! Once you hit the main menu, the game's particularly unique charm hits you immediately. One of my favorite details is when you go to set up a race, it has this sort of low-key yet energetic track that only grows and adds more instruments as you further progress through the menus. Like, isn't that sick? Anyways, we're going to be going with our boy Luigi, and we're going on the series first motorbike because I want to do sick wheelies and flips. And then we're off to the races, and... Oh, I forgot to do the speed boost trick. I'm so used to playing Mario Kart 8, which has been the definitive version of the game for the last decade. Oh my god, that going back to this one feels kind of bizarre. Acceleration, turning, drifting, it's all got a lighter, more arcadey feel to it that once I got my head back around was kind of fun. One of the new additions to this game this time around was tricks. So when you go over a speed bump or up a half pipe wall thing, you can shake the Wii remote violently and do a trick for a speed boost. This is such a fun little thingamajig because it both keeps you more engaged with the races as well as just being something fun to do, you know? And it really helps add some more variety and flavor to the maps of this game, and oh my god, the maps! There are so many good ones here in Mario Kart Wii. My favorite growing up was definitely Mushroom Gorge, because you got to bounce on all of these mushrooms. Warrior's Gold Mine is a bit of an offbeat choice with some spooky bats, but it's still a load of fun. Coconut Mall gets you coconut mold. Moo Moo Motors has these super cute cows. And of course, Rainbow Road. This version of the infamous track is so good and so brutal. But not all the maps are good. Like there's this one where you just drive around a giant Yoshi egg. You brought this back from the DS? But that's not what you remember Mario Kart Wii for. No. You remember it for being insanely fucked. This is the Dark Souls of Mario Kart games. The difficulty in this game is just insane. You can go from 1st to 12th place in 5 seconds flat, but maybe equally as chaotic, it works in reverse as well. You can come back at the very last second all the way from last place. The rubber banding of your AI opponents feels so random as you'll get through some races without being hit by a single blue shell, while others you'll get hit and then hit again and then bumped and then spat on and then you fall off the edge. Oh my god. I'm sure you've all seen this clip by now, but this is the perfect encapsulation of what it feels like to play this game. It is very frustrating, but its hard sort of edge does give it a very unique feel in the series. And the other thing it does so well is its character roster. Of course, you've got Mario, Luigi, Peach, blah blah blah, but there were some really cool additions too, like Diddy Kong, Rosalina, Funky Kong, and Mies, which meant you could have anyone in the race. anyone. It's something the newer games have really dropped the ball on because, like, why would you replace my boy Diddy Kong with Rose Gold Peach? Rose Gold Peach! Huh? So where does Mario Kart Wii and its legacy sit all these years later? Well, it's certainly unique. It's from that weird era where the industry was going through massive changes, yet Nintendo doubled down on their eccentric way of doing things. Motion controls being the selling point for their kart racer just worked, and being at the start of the Wii's life cycle is a big reason the game sold 37 million copies. What? Is it the best? Nah, I think Mario Kart 8 is pretty definitively the series' peak. But there is a lovely little charm to this 2008 classic that isn't found anywhere else. And on top of all that, it's got a thriving modding scene with an active online player base and countless new mods and maps, and that is incredible. But hey, that's enough from me. I've got to get back to playing The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess for my Nintendo Wii. Thank you, Zany, for letting me be on the show, and to everyone watching, I wish you a Merry Christmas and to all a good night. Ho, 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 ho.
Jardi.
Sonic Unleashed is a video game. Is it a good video game? What? So it all started with this werehog. I'm not gonna talk about Sonic's bad transition into 3D primarily because I don't care, but also because Unleashed was the first Sonic game I ever played, and admittedly, I can't remember if I liked the game as a kid or not, so that's already a good sign. After playing the game for a total of more time that could have been spent playing literally any other game, I can say that playing this game has been an insufferable experience. I probably blocked this game out of my memory for a good reason. Yeah, what the heck was... What? Given my less than enthusiastic experience with Sonic Unleashed, I'm probably just gonna go through this as quickly as possible because, damn, this game was painful. Pretty good so far. I'm digging it, actually. This night stage music is actually really good. Like, I'd give it a solid 0 out of 10. And as insufferable as this experience was, there were at least a few good things about the game. Like drifties? Wait. There were drifties in this game, and it was actually good? So, this game came out in 2008, yeah, and the drifting looks like this. Not that bad, actually. It's pretty good. Tokyo drifting aside, you at least have this guy describing what Eggman looks like.
It was a little bit before the tremors hit. This old man showed up with a...
And this depressed ice cream man, which may or may not be an Italian. Other than those few things, that's really all the nice stuff I can say about Unleashed. What if I told you that part of playing Sonic Unleashed was a visual novel? Of course, you still have your standard gameplay of Sonic, which is just going straight and going fast, which is impossible for me. But they have this neat thing called Day Stage and Night Stage, otherwise known as Dumb and Dumber. Now, you'd think with this very cool mechanic of day stages and night stages, I'd have a preference on which one I like. No, I dislike both of them equally for different reasons. Day stage is your basic Sonic. Go fast, run into a wall, fall off the map, restart, repeat. Night stage is go slow, be absolutely hated by gravity because you have no hops, then go to therapy. Though I will admit, I do prefer night stage bosses over day stage bosses, but that's not saying a whole lot because they're both brain dead. Day stage bosses just require you to homing attack and dodge. That's one way to do it, I guess. Jesus Christ. Night stage bosses have mechanics like throwing water barrels or guarding. Very intuitive, very great, yes. So you know how there are certain things that kind of activate your fight or flight responses, like the cloaker sound from Payday 2, a police siren, or even your mom and the mailman in the bedroom? Unleashed has one of those as well. You know, I've never been more glad to have tinnitus in my life. Surprisingly enough, the night stage battle theme isn't what sent me into a mental institute. Well, it's part of the reason. The other reason was... What was that? Did I like the game? I don't know, ask my therapist. And now Zanny. In the wise words of Sakurai, don't ask me for shit ever again.
MrHammers.
Every year has its high and lows for video games. You got your breakout indie gems and your AAA belly flops. 2008 is no exception. But what if I told you that one of the best titles of the entire year was a remastered version of a game that came out 2 years prior? Bully is one of Rockstar's greatest titles. It's a unique spin on their usual open-world crime sandbox genre. It brought in kids with slingshots and skateboards to replace the gangsters with Uzis and sports cars. In the game, you follow a kid named Jimmy Hopkins, a little troublemaker being sent off to boarding school, more or less because his mom is disinterested in raising him and would rather honeymoon with another new husband. Jimmy has to attend class and survive the various cliques at his school, from the nerds to the preps to the jocks and more, and as he works with and gains reputation with each clique, he also tries his best to bring the school together and stop bullying at the end of the day. For a troublemaker of a kid, he really ain't that bad. It's a lot smaller and more compact than Rockstar's GTA titles, taking place in a relatively large school campus located in a relatively small town. It did everything right though. The story was brilliant, typical Rockstar humor and crudeness, while also keeping it surprisingly toned down to reflect the characters and setting of, well, children in school. There, of course, was some controversy over certain topics in the game, like bullying, the name of the damn thing. Moms hated that. But also there were some risque things as well, getting alcohol for teachers or raiding the girls' dorm for panties. Pretty minor things in comparison, but people still made a whole hoot and a holler about them.
Great! So go and collect all the dirty laundry from the, girls' dorm.
Okay.
And if you get caught, I know nothing about it.
I won't say anything, sir. In fact, I'll make it clear that I never saw you coming out of an adult store clutching illicit magazines.
Good boy!
The gameplay was stellar, the side content was just as fulfilling as the main story missions, and the characters were all bursting with personality, just drawing you into this quirky little world that Rockstar built. The term Grand Theft Auto with kids is often thrown around to describe the game, which is probably a tad too vague of a descriptor, but I guess it gets the point across, a little buzzword headline to get someone to dip their toes in it. But in reality, that's kind of like saying that Sleeping Dogs is just Grand Theft Auto in Hong Kong. Does it work? Yeah, but are we really being concise here though? The thing about Bully though is that it was released in October of 2006, exclusively on the PlayStation 2, releasing just about a year after the Xbox 360 hit the market, making this an exclusive title on a last-gen console. Luckily, this was peak Rockstar Games, and I'm sure plenty of people still gobbled this game up. I certainly did. But a lot of people also let it slip by in favor of newer, more enticing titles on this shiny new hardware, like Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie Peter Jackson's King Kong. So it makes sense that 2 years later, in March of 2008, Bully was remastered as a Scholarship Edition, and released on the Xbox 360, the PC, and the Nintendo Wii. This not only brought the game to a much larger audience, I'm sure for plenty of people this was their first crack at the game, but it was actually a well done remaster, adding a variety of new content to the game as well as improving the graphics quality to showcase the new hardware. Except on the Wii, that still looked kind of identical to the PS2 version. I don't really know why Rockstar was obsessed with releasing titles on the Wii. There is no way that they added significant amount of sales to compensate for the development process of converting games to the Wiimote controls, but they really had a hard-on for this console. I mean, they even released Manhunt 2 on this thing. I don't get it.
Stabbings, even torture and strangulation, all with this little thing, so you kind of have to imagine.
But anyway, Bully was a hit on its re-release. It got some poor reviews on the PC platform because it was kind of a nightmare with bugs, but what are you gonna do? The content that was added was, in my opinion, really entertaining, but not really substantial in any way. They of course didn't change any of the main story or existing content because why mess with perfection? They added about a half a dozen side missions as well as 4 new classes to participate in. New clothing clothing items to unlock, new characters to meet, and also multiplayer for some mini-games. The side missions vary in quality. All of them have Jimmy doing favors from sketchy adults or dropouts like usual, but some of the best ones in my opinion revolve around Christmas time in Bulworth, and also a drunk man named Rudy, who is convinced that he is Santa Claus.
I miss Prancer.
Oh, what?
He was always my favorite. Not Rudolph.
No.
He asked Jimmy to help with various things like throwing snowballs at some kids that were harassing him, or busting up a fake Santa's Christmas booth because he's stealing money from Rudy, and then in turn having Jimmy help him set up his own Christmas show where he takes pictures of kids on his lap for some money. Very interesting stuff for sure. And Santa is quick to take his money to the reindeer games.
The track?
Yeah, you know, the reindeer games, and
You also get roped into a Christmas musical with the music teacher pretty much forcing you. You help the chemistry teacher deliver some mysterious chemicals to some people in town. I thought this was the teacher Breaking Bad, but it turns out that this is just a hair growth tonic, as all the people you deliver to happen to be follically challenged. You also get a couple missions from Clint, who is a little unhinged to say the least. He wants you to smash some rich kids' mailboxes and steal him some bikes, you know, typical hood rat shit.
Thanks for the bike.
Aside from these side missions, the remastered version also adds some more school classes that Jimmy can go through during his time at, well, school. In addition to the existing chemistry, English, photography, art, gym, and shop classes, they added biology, math, music, and geography. They all function the same as the prior classes in the game, some glorified mini-games of course, and completing them grants some sort of bonus during the gameplay. However, most of them are just different kinds of clothing items and outfits. Biology is like a connect the dots dissection game. Math is just simple SAT style questions, sometimes not really relating to math at all. Music is more fun as it's a rhythm based minigame, and geography is one of the more difficult ones as it actually requires some knowledge of the subject, but is really not that bad. You just match flags with the countries on a map, and this is one where you end up getting useful rewards in addition to clothing items. You get collectibles marked on your map like rubber bands and transistors, a very useful perk to have if you're a completionist. But that's really all the content that was added in Scholarship Edition. All in all, Bully Scholarship Edition is just Bully. The things that they added were incredibly minor, but the most important thing was the fact that they brought it to new consoles, and in turn new players to enjoy this amazing game. Bully may have been released in 2006, but 2008 was most certainly its year to shine.
Thank you, everyone.
SirHellfire.
Ah, my fellow gamers. Long have I enjoyed this pretty mid video game, back from the dark times before the coffining. Back in the year of 2008, when I was an edgy 12-year-old with a fancy for warfare and military bullshit like it wasn't abhorrent by its very nature. Hell's Highway is a pretty good showcase of that, the abhorrent part I mean. For those that have never played, whether you were too young at the time or are still too young to understand that these events are from nearly 80 years ago, let me set the scene. Brothers in Arms Hell's Highway, third and as of writing, last game in the Kindred of Armament series. We play Matt Baker, this depressed looking American, as we lead our little squad of the 101st Airborne Division through Operation Market Garden, which for those in the crowd who don't have an interest in history like I do, let me clue you in onto how it went. Pretty fucking poorly. You get to play through this collective mess of planning and execution by the most advanced military alliance of the time and kill a bunch of Germans in the process. Now, as a half-Polish German man myself, even I get to feel the almost century-old resentment for my brothers from other mothers, and all I've got to say on the matter is, you know what? Fair enough. Anyway, Hell's Highway. Good game. Bit boring for certain parts and certainly doesn't hold too much water in a narrative sense, but the graphics haven't aged terribly for a game that's almost as old as I was when I first played it. Even the gameplay itself is still pretty good considering it's the main reason you'll play it in the modern day. Every encounter is like an isolated puzzle you used to play in kindergarten. It's just that they all involve bullets this time. So the Americans should be very good at it. Fear not, however, the easy mode is still pretty easy if normal is giving you a rough time. And don't worry, stay calm, there's a kid in this game that's gunning for that American green card. Look at him, hitting center mass like a champ, and he didn't even look the dude in the eyes. He's practically working for the boys in blue already. Let's be real, however. I blindsided my fair share of grey camo-wearing bastards revisiting this one, as that's pretty much how most of the combat encounters are designed to play out. Or, you know, you could just head glitch them too. There's a good variety of situations you'll be forced into with Hell's Highway, and thankfully they do have a proper increase in challenge as you progress towards the end. That said, the variety in enemies and the weapons they wield isn't impressive, but rather how they line up in each arena, and the pathways you can take to try and outflank them. Sometimes you'll have an MG squad to suppress the crowds good and proper. Sometimes you'll have a bazooka to just blow them up. Even the odd occasion of losing all your allies and having to play solo for a little bit. Not the best idea from the game designers, but they do make up for it with the tank section. I like the tank sections. There's a big gun that goes boom. That one dedicated sniper section is pretty fun as well. My common criticism for Hell's Highway as the third game in the series is that it adds a lot more Hollywood to its formula compared to its predecessors. There's a lot more inter-character drama that I don't expect from a military shooter that doesn't have the player character committing a few war crimes. It honestly strikes me as a little bit childish at some points, mainly in this exchange between Frankie and Corian the Dickweed.
When I give you an order, you follow. Yeah, I'm sure the 9 seconds I was spending to make him comfortable before he died was a huge loss.
Like, damn, I know it sucks that the civvy ain't gonna be running a marathon anytime soon, but maybe deal with the heavy-duty artillery piece that's just down the road before more people cark it. To that point, I'm gonna need some Brian Shaw strength air quotes on this next one. That artillery dude is one of the 2 villains Hell's Highway tries to have something happen with. The story is throwing up bricks in that regard, but the inter-character drama and ongoing conflict with Baker, while retconned to high heaven, is still enough to make you power through to the next level, if not for the morbid curiosity of which squad member is gonna get it next. And if you're one of the few who played the original games even further back into the dark days, you'll probably enjoy some of the turns the story takes in this one. Some of them. About the only other point I can hit on before Zanny rips me away from this temporal realm is the end-to-end sound of Hell's Highway. As far as the music goes, if you like the traditional military droning of brass instruments backed up with a nice rattly snare drum, you're gonna be eating good. If you're more into the choral type of music for moments of death, you'll be satisfied with this one pretty good moment.
Look it! Alan! Get the fuck!
I do wish the sound effects behind the guns had a bit more beef to them. Most of the automatic weapons sound like a toddler spamming a particularly aggressive cap gun. The best sounding gun in my mind is the bar because it does have that beefy punch to every shot, but I normally swap it out for the Kar 98 for cheeky headshots. It's not my favorite example of what a good sound suite for video games should be like, but when it's in the right time at the right place, the music can definitely have that elevative quality you want from it in a storytelling medium. And I'll complain about how the guns sound a bit weak, but they're still effective in giving someone a bad day. That's about all I have to say on Hell's Highway, honestly. If you haven't played the other games in the series, I'd recommend doing so before jumping into this one. And as far as a game from the deep memories of 2008 goes, you could play worse games to kill the day with. You could also pick a few better ones too. Maybe some of them will be in this video. I've got to leave now. I have sauerkraut to make. Back to you, Zanny.
Zanyverse.
Far Cry 2 is the premium African wildlife expedition war crime simulator out there. Let me tell you about it. The game starts us off with a 10-minute long unskippable cutscene where we are absolutely drowned in exposition about the current state of the region. it's pretty bad out there, so he drives us to a hotel in the ceasefire zone. This ceasefire lasts for about 3 seconds before we're thrusted into a raging war between the game's two warring factions, the APR and the UFLL. Two sides of the same coin vying for the control of this unnamed African country. Yeah, no, that's actually what it's called. After looting a few corpses and running out of the ex-ceasefire zone, we pass out on account of having a severe case of untreated malaria. We're then scooped up by a man named Arturo Quepo, a lieutenant for the APR, who gives us our first mission. A tutorial, if you will. The gameplay of Far Cry 2 revolves around the main character taking up missions for either one of the factions, because why get paid by one when you can just kill double the amount of people while being paid for it? And when I say paid, I really do mean paid. Paper money has no value due to just how fucked the economy is. So you only get paid with raw, uncut diamonds. A dozen here and a dozen there, and soon you'll be walking around with the GDP of a small country in your pockets. But what do you spend these cold hard stones on? Guns, guns, explosives, and more guns. Throughout the course of your game, you'll acquire more and more deadly firearms, from pistols to submachine guns to LMGs and flamethrowers. Be sure to regularly pick up new ones from your storages or pry them out of the cold dead hands from your fallen enemies or comrades. This is guerrilla warfare and you don't have time to make friends. The game's missions are split up into multiple types. First of all, there's main missions, in which either one of the factions tasks you to fuck with the other one. This could revolve around you blowing something up, or blowing something up. Yeah, no, it's really just about blowing something up most of the time. Next up are underground missions. These are missions in which you help out the innocent citizens of unnamed African country by delivering passwords to them in exchange for malaria pills. I never did any of these and didn't suffer any consequences. Besides the occasional green hue on my HUD, I really should visit a doctor about that. While making your way through this war-torn nation, you'll also come across a variety of other small things to undertake. There's plenty of safe houses for you to secure, and a whole bunch of outposts for you to scout out for ammo, explosives, or health. More diamonds can also be collected by using your GPS/radar/live map thing, with it blinking green when you're close and staying green if you're looking right at it. The game also has a minimalist HUD, including no minimap, which is why all your driving gameplay is gonna look like this. There's also audio tapes for you to find made by none other than the Jackal.
What do you think you're going to achieve with this interview? You think somebody in the Pentagon's going to read it and come after me? Shit, no. I'm a necessary evil. They want me here. They're glad I'm here. Because if I wasn't, they might have to come try to stem the tide. It would be thankless and worthless, and once the bodies started coming home in bags, they're screwed. A dead 23-year-old from Iowa gets more airtime than the death of 50,000 people he gave his life to protect. So even if they did give a shit, their own media prevents them from taking action.
The game's main villain, or anti-hero, I suppose. I'm gonna save this for a separate video because I could be here talking about morals and good and bad sides for like 20 fucking minutes, and even I have a deadline to meet, which you wouldn't guess judging off my upload schedule. Far Cry 2 is in all honesty a complete gem. Sure, it's a little dated, the AI can be a little goofy, and the actual story is very forgettable. It is very much still a solid game that I'd recommend, especially if you think Far Cry 3 is the best one. Also, with this game being from 2008, it looks very brown and muddy, like damn, even the
Fizhy.
Hello everyone, welcome to space. It was nice and peaceful until I came along. My name's Fizhy and I'm a professional arsonist, and you're stuck out here with me. And I'm about to tell you about the best game that came out of 2008. Do you like Agario but wish it had more war crimes? How about creating cursed abominations to science? Or even intergalactic genocide? If any of that tickles your pickle, then Spore is the game for you. Spore is a game where you evolve from just another cell in the primordial soup to literally God. It's quite simple. You've got to go from a primitive animal to a spacefaring empire. That story begins by choosing whether you're a carnivore or a herbivore. It really doesn't matter, please just ignore it, you can change it later. And then you can name your homeworld whatever the fuck you want. Really. And bang, look at that, you're a cell. Nothing necessarily to rave about at first, but this portion of the game is simply just Agario, so eat things and it will be okay. Try to avoid getting eaten by things that are bigger than you. Ha! It's just a flesh wound. Oh fuck, as you eat more and more you become bigger, and when you become bigger you can eat the things that were once eating you. It's like standing up to your childhood bully, except in this scenario, everyone's ugly, and the assault rifle hasn't been invented yet. Once you've evolved enough, you'll grow a brain and functioning legs, which are two things that I lack. I've decided to go on land with a creature I named the Stupid Duck. Why? Because it looks nothing like a duck. Cinnabit Bellends, I haven't realised sentience is a bad idea. Your objectives on land are quite simple. Eat, befriend, kill, find body parts in old bones, because that's how evolution works. Reproduce via the means of a stupid dance. The laws of biology in the Spore universe are frankly ridiculous. I have bendier knees now. One day, this ugly creature is going to glass your planet. Violence is the quickest way to evolve, and Spore understands that. However, you can also befriend other species, and these are the two primary means with which you can increase the size of your brain, I guess. With that, you become more powerful. DNA points allow you to unlock better body parts with which you can enable yourself to become a fucking unit. I'm not out of the creature stage and I feel like I've already violated the Geneva Convention. This is my sleep paralysis demon. It's a bit of a slog, but before long you've got an absolute tank of a beast, and you've accomplished sentience and you're now in the tribal stage. I commemorated this occasion by giving my creature a cock and naming it the Penis Monster. Toes. The objectives of Tribal Stage aren't dissimilar to the Creature Stage. Turns out, sentience doesn't stop you from killing things, it just makes the whole affair slightly more tactical. But hey, at least we can dance now. The primary purpose of the tribal stage is to expand your tribe by developing your village, installing buildings that have different purposes, collecting food and going on raids and scrapping with enemies to assert your dominance over the continent you are on. As a result of that, you become more and more powerful and can make more babies. And this is done by your village's main hut literally shitting out an egg from which a baby is hatched. What's even going on in there? The tribal stage is honestly quite tedious. Why? Because it's rather full on. It's quite simple in how it works, but at any given moment there are at least 6 different things occurring that you need to respond to. You can also befriend animals in this stage, but nobody ever does that because the main purpose is to get through the tribal phase as quickly as possible, because if you don't hurry up, your village is going to get annexed by a banana with legs. So all efforts must be concentrated on destroying them first by battering a tent with a stick for 20 minutes. I'm sure there's an easier way to do it, but I didn't have time to figure that out. I just hope the chieftain doesn't respawn before I'm done. Woo, genocide. For every ally you make or enemy you destroy, you get a totem head, and once you've caught them all, kind of like Pokemon or sexually transmitted diseases, you can evolve to the civilization stage. Finally. So you build a humble gaff, and your tribal simpletons are already thinking of weapons of mass destruction. Oh, and pies. But mostly bombs. And then we're immediately designing a land vehicle. In the Spore universe, the wheel was invented alongside the internal combustion engine. In fact, we've gone straight from discovering fire to the Blitz. The civilization stage is where things begin to get complex, naturally, but it's pretty neat. The oil of the Spore universe is known as spice, the effects of which you will see whilst taking a tram late at night in Manchester. But spice is how you make money, and with spice money you can build a city. Well, technically several, but we're not at the bombarding our enemies part just yet. Cities have 4 different kinds of buildings: a town hall, housing, entertainment, and unethical sweatshops. You can design these buildings yourselves, and then you can throw down the organization of your city in whichever order you fancy. However, there will be certain buffs depending on the placement of some buildings with respect to other kinds of buildings. Not all of them are positive, but their effects just the same, and let's be honest, this is not the kind of playthrough where people's happiness really matters. In the civilization stage, there are 2 types of cities, religious and military, and your starting city is decided primarily, I believe, by how you handle the tribal stage. And in my case, I didn't exactly go the godly route. So when I discovered another city had appeared on my planet, I immediately wiped it out. They surrendered rather quickly, and considering this is a port city, I have boats now. The main objective of the civilization stage is to, one way or another, take control of all 10 cities on the planet. I believe there are 10. Anyway, I don't count. You basically become the British Empire and wipe out all culture on the planet until all that remains are tragic-looking brick houses and unethical sweatshops. The sun never sets on the penis monster nation. You can do this peacefully as well, but where's the fun in that?
Atrocities all day, baby.
I think I negotiated quite well here. I'm honestly surprised this time there were survivors to surrender. Once you forego the concept of diplomacy and become comfortable with endless mass murder, the civilization stage becomes quite smooth. Look, there is no such thing as ethical world domination, so you might as well start blasting. It's quicker. The more cities you capture, the mightier your forces become, and the faster you can capture the next one. And once you've conquered the lot, it's time to evolve to the space stage. So by that logic, all we need to achieve long-distance space travel in this world is for somebody to conquer the entire planet. There are only so many countries you could trust to do that. And now we have a spaceship, which means galactic domination is on the horizon. The space stage is the longest of the lot because it's the remainder of your playthrough. You fly around your planet to prove that you can fly, and then you venture into space. You find evidence of alien life as if UFOs weren't flying overhead whilst you're in the creature stage, and from a crashed starship you discover an interstellar drive which allows you to travel between one star system and another. I'm sorry, there appears to be some kind of mistake. I've only just got here, but the capital city appears to already be destroyed. Defense mechanisms kick in, so we have to destroy some drones. It's good to know that even on an alien world we are competently violent. Upon returning home, this guy introduces us to the concept of colonialism. And that entails dropping a colony from orbit on other planets. There's nothing else really to it, I don't understand how this is viable. But once a colony is established, you've got to terraform the world in order to make it thrive. But if you're sensible, you'll just leave it alone as it is. I love that the game immediately refers to it as a penis monster colony. The first planet I colonised had no people to subjugate, but I thought I'd take it slowly, so we'll get there. But now we get to return home at the speed of light and receive a cookie. Then we were tasked with finding an alien empire. That is something that could take decades, if not centuries. Oh. Hello, I am from the Penis Monster. I come in peace. You can interact with aliens by repairing and recharging your ship, trading, and also diplomacy. You can take on missions to increase your favour with such species, but you can also give them gifts of lots of money, which does it quicker. You can establish trade routes, and in the event that you befriend the species, you can form an alliance and they'll lend your fleet one of their ships. But it's a waste of time to do both. Once the trade route has run its course, the alien will offer to sell you their planet. If it's their only world, they will still do it, but they'll wipe themselves out once the deal is complete. In that respect, I feel as if this game is a little bit broken. But not only can you interact with other spacefaring civilizations and establish colonies on fucked up planets that aren't survivable without assistance, you can also find pre-spaceflight civilizations and do what must be done. This world is mine now. It's just occurred to me that there's no such thing as the Geneva Convention in space, so technically this is perfectly legal. If you want fully terraformed colonies, this is the way to go about it. You don't have to waste time terraforming the colony yourself because it simply was already able to sustain life to that degree. But T3 colonies, as Spore refers to them, are the most fragile of the lot, as they can suffer eco-disasters at the smallest things. But not just that, your colonies and your allies can also be invaded, either by pirates or a mysterious race known simply as the Groks, who seem to inhabit the star systems around the centre of the galaxy. Using the benefit of wormholes, you can travel deeper into the galaxy quickly. Your mission? Locate the mysterious Groks. As it turns out, they're rather easy to find. They're everywhere, and they're quite unfriendly. This is what happens when you give a Tamagotchi anabolic steroids. They weren't easily wooed by the penis monster empire, however, my empire must expand. Did you think the penis monsters reproduced slowly? So it dawned on me that there was one solution that I had not tried yet. As it turns out, in trading, I'd unlocked a massive weapon, the Planet Buster, which costs 4 million Spore bucks a pop. And no, that's not a microtransaction. It is an EA game, but it's not that kind of EA game. As you can imagine, these Planet Busters are quite naughty, and nobody has any problem selling them to you, but they do get a stick up their arse when you use them. Why did you sell me weapons of mass destruction then? These weapons are atrocious, beyond the limits of my very imagination. Why, thank you very much, I'll take 10. Oh boy, they're everywhere. This is not going to go well. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time. Wait, hang on, so I'm sticking it to this highly advanced, aggressive race of genocidal maniacs, and you want to go to war with me? Bitter money later, and they're happy to sell me a Planet Buster, at a discount no less. That's really generous of you, thank you very much. And that, my friends, is what you get for being fucking stupid. A bit of antagonizing and nuking the Groks later, it becomes painfully clear that for all of my Planet Buster bombs, I'm simply tweaking them on the nose, over and over again. However, I am curious as to what it is that they're protecting at the centre of the galaxy. Getting to the centre of the galaxy is easier said than done. The entire way, you've got to venture through Grok's territory. If you're at war with them, that's even worse. You can ally with them at the expense of all of your other friendships, but that's about it. And the closer you get to the galactic core, the less distance you can jump, which means you'll reach dead ends rather often. But some trial and error later, and plenty of recharge packs and repair kits, I finally made it. I never did this as a kid, so allow me to savour the moment. I wonder what marvels and secrets lay within. Okay, I was not expecting that, but it gives me something called the Staff of Life. Basically, it's got 42 uses, which is a neat Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference, and it terraforms any planet into a completely inhabitable world. I've ascended to godhood, and that's kind of the endgame, I guess. It's like the anti-Planet Buster. It's the Planet Thruster. Wait, the Minor Empire? Yeah, if there was one thing this video was lacking, it was going to be a nonce joke, wasn't it? So in conclusion, Spore is a game that I like for reasons that will get me arrested. 37 out of 10. Thank you for watching.
Voiy.
Okay, hello everyone, I'm Voiy, and I had the unfortunate assignment of reviewing Tomb Raider Underworld for this video while Zanny held my entire family captive. I love Tomb Raider. I love Lara Croft. This character means a lot to me, and it means a lot to the Rule 34 Reddit. We have the original PS1 games, we have the newer Survivor trilogy, but right in the middle we have this weird trilogy of games that no one ever really seems to talk about. The third being Tomb Raider Underworld. If you're only familiar with the newer Survivor trilogy, I should point out that Lara is pretty different from her character in those games. She doesn't apologise for killing a deer. In fact, she fully condones animal abuse, as she regularly roundhouse kicks pigeons and slaughters endangered species like Batman beating up the residents of Gotham for pirating a DVD. She's much more of a badass, has snappy one-liners, and isn't a fan of wearing many layers on her clothing. Speaking of that, the game kicks off in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, with Lara wearing a wetsuit with a wedgie so severe, her grandkids can feel it. She's searching for the path to Avalon, while on Skype to two of the most 2008 looking characters you'll ever see. Quick side note as we're here, Lara's character model is really off to me in this game. I don't know what it is, like the huge eyes, the Giny Keller, what the fuck? The huge eyes, the Kylie Jenner lips, the ironing board shaped face. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it's It's really odd. We kick things off with a pretty large underwater section that gives you the freedom to roam about and get attacked by the occasional shark. A bold move for sure, as underwater sections can be pretty disorientating if not done right, and with no real sense of direction, I'm sure a lot of players would feel a little lost here. Not to mention the game literally has the worst map in any video game I've ever played in my life. Like, what the fuck is this? You might as well have Stevie Wonder telling me where to go. Anyway, after getting your bearings, you'll end up having to solve the first puzzle, and as I found out the hard way, the game punishes you for turning off VSync. For some reason, not having VSync enabled makes these rocks that are supposed to just rest in place fly about and have a mind of their own. VSync now off, and the rocks still kind of buggy, we find ourselves in a room with a giant octopus. A sight that has been seen so many times on adult websites, but the first time it has happened in an actual Tomb Raider game. I think. I didn't do research for this video, I don't know, don't quote me. He's not exactly friendly, but he's also not too scary. As long as you react quickly enough to avoid his tentacles, you'll be all good. After some standard Tomb Raider parkour of climbing on things, jumping off things, grabbing things, and ejecting off things, and a few puzzles later, we eventually cut down a giant structure above the squid. Sadly, this would end the octopus's life, but as long as no one tells Peter, we should be all good. We find the Infinity Gauntlet, aka a gauntlet Thor used to wield his hammer, but arriving was the Scuba Boys coming to take out Lara, and we're saved by the door caving in so we can make our escape. Making it back to the boat, we see another bigger boat, so we go and invade, and this is where we get our first taste of the combat. The combat is nothing to write home about, but it's not actually that bad either. You have an aim button, which auto-locks onto the nearest enemy, with some bloom, but mostly accurate depending on how far away you are from your target. While shooting, you also have a dodge button and a jump button, which I found to be the most efficient way of avoiding damage. So if you see me doing gold medal level gymnastics in the middle of a gunfight, that would be why. We blast many guys on the ship until we make it inside, where we find a character by the name of Amanda, who is also here searching for Avalon. There's also a lady with wings who knows about Lara's mother and father and tells us we have to go to Helheim, but first we need Thor's hammer. She's airlifted out, and Amanda is on a helicopter as the ship begins to implode, so we also decide to dip out. Alright, intro done and dusted, and with the basic premise of the game set, I'm going to break everything down into shorter categories. Unfortunately, we're going to start with the story. Basically, Lara wants to know what happened to her mother, but in order to do that, she needs to get to Helheim. Over the story, Lara slowly collects Thor's items, like his belt, gauntlet, and hammer, while also competing with Amanda to get it all first. Oh yeah, not to mention that Amanda has also created an evil Stewie version of Lara that's an absolute killing machine, but has red hair, so I'd still let her step on me. Everything in the first, 3/4 of Underworld is fairly enjoyable story-wise, and although being far-fetched, I mean, it's a story about a treasure hunter, what do you expect, it remains somewhat grounded. The last couple of hours of this, however, it goes absolutely bonkers. So Lara, with her newly acquired hammer, finds the winged lady to free her and find Helheim. Amanda and Lara number 2 turn up, but Lara number 2 throws Amanda into the abyss, so that's goodbye to her. Lara then meets the winged lady in Helheim, where she is trying to release the serpent, which in turn will end the world. We have a boss fight, although it's very much a stretch to call this a boss fight, with the winged lady, but Amanda is alive and she saves Lara, and somehow now also has evil Amanda powers. Lara throws Thor's hammer at the winged lady, destroying everything and stopping the serpent from rising. Lara and her new bestie Amanda then pull a sword from a stone which could transport them to hell, but no, it transports them back to the start of the chamber. They agree to move on with their lives and leave each other alone, where the game rolls credits. So yeah, quick summary of the story, it's boring until it gets crazy, and then when it's crazy, it's too crazy. I don't know, overall it's pretty bad. Alright, parkour along with puzzles is the main part of any Tomb Raider game. A Tomb Raider game with bad parkour is a bad Tomb Raider game. That's why this is a bad Tomb Raider game. To start with the positive, I'd like to say the freedom is nice. It grants you the ability to somewhat do what you want in some areas, and if you can see a ledge, you can get there in your own way sometimes. Sometimes there's a simple ledge that you could just jump to, but you could also wall eject to it, or you could also swing to it. You know, the game gives you that freedom occasionally. Okay, so now for everything else, which is all pretty terrible. The animations for the first time in the Tomb Raider series were mocapped, so maybe that's why it's so bad, but yeah, here we go. For starters, the inconsistency. Why can I make this jump, but not this one? Why can't Lara just grab this ledge? Why, when I'm pointing the thumbstick one way, does Lara do the complete opposite to what I'm asking? Why does Lara just sometimes decide she doesn't want to live anymore? If she doesn't want to grab a ledge or make a jump, she just won't. There's no rhyme or reason to it, she just won't do it. And maybe this is a skill issue. This could very well be a skill issue. Maybe I'm just horrible at the game. But do you know what isn't a skill issue? The camera. Like, why? Why, when I'm trying to make a jump to a ledge, does the camera decide to focus on Lara, completely cutting off the angle I need to see to jump? Am I facing a ledge, or am I about to jump to my death? I don't have a clue. It's a gamble. The camera won't tell me. I can't see where I'm jumping to. Like, I get it. Back in the day, Lara was a lot more sexualized than she is now. But why, when I'm climbing a rock, does the camera feel necessary to go so deep in her ass that I could basically give her a colon inspection? It's the weird, clunky mix of old animations that also just don't even look right. Even though they're mocapped, some of them look good, but a lot of them just look like they were stretched out, or like the mocap wasn't enough and they had to hand animate some of it. It's a really weird mix of the both, so it just ends up with it looking clunky at times. So with that clunkiness mixed with the inconsistent mechanics and a camera that has a mind of its own, it will make for many, many frustrating deaths that aren't really your fault. Alright, puzzles are puzzles. They're not too difficult. I definitely got stuck a couple of times, but overall they're fun. I don't enjoy going back on myself a lot of the time, which is what you do here, but they were entertaining enough to keep the game ticking, as it's what you'll be spending most of your time doing. Nothing offensive here, but they're also not very deep either, so overall, they're just alright. The locations are the best thing about Underworld. Going from Thailand to Mexico to Yan Mine to Arctic to Croft Manor and both the Mediterranean Sea and Arctic Sea. If there's anything I'd love Crystal Dynamics to take from these older games to implement into whatever new Tomb Raider project that is they're working on, it's going back to more linear levels that see Lara traveling across the world. Still have them open and have the freedom like these are. They're open areas, there's lots of places to explore, but they still have a linearity to them and a direction to them. It's not an open world where you can go here, go there, Metroidvania-like, where you have to unlock certain abilities to get to certain places. That, in my opinion, can get pretty boring, whereas these levels that are based all across the world make you feel like much more of a treasure hunter. Not to mention, it just keeps things more spiced and entertaining, like having Lara ride a motorbike through the Mexican jungle, while maybe zany. See what I did there? It's just straight up fun that the Tomb Raider series has been missing. I enjoy a more serious take on Lara, and while Underworld didn't make me feel any connection to her due to the surface level and subpar writing, it's also nice to see a Lara who seems like she enjoys these adventures and is having fun while doing it. I didn't enjoy a lot of my time with Underworld, and it stands out as the weakest of this trilogy, and maybe one of the weakest in the series due to the parkour, story and characters, and bugs that were never fixed. As a Tomb Raider fan though, there's still a lot here to love, and when everything works and clicks, it's a fun time. If you've never really been into Tomb Raider, I wouldn't recommend this as a place to start. However, if you are already into Tomb Raider and you want more, I would recommend the 6 hours or so that it takes to beat this, as there is some fun to be had here. If you didn't like this review, well, that's because I've never reviewed a game before in my life, so it's a skill issue with me. If you want to see more of me, I make videos where I attempt to be funny over on my channel. Thanks to Zany, and can I have my family back now, please?
Pilps.
Hey you!
Look at this!
I gotta tell you about Left 4 Dead, the critically acclaimed zombie shooter game released in 2008, a year that was part of the golden era of gaming, which I sorely miss on a regular daily basis. Left 4 Dead is a game that has stood the test of time and continues to be highly regarded for its innovative gameplay mechanics, immersive aesthetics, and compelling storytelling. In this video, we will dive deeper into what makes Left 4 Dead such a game-changing, fun, and great game. Firstly, let's discuss the game's aesthetics. Left 4 Dead's immersive and highly detailed graphics and visual effects set the stage for an atmospheric post-apocalyptic world. The game's designers have crafted an environment that is gritty, dark, and brutal, providing players with an immersive experience as they navigate through the abandoned streets, buildings and sewers and more, while fending off hordes of zombies. The lighting, textures, and animations all contribute to the game's immersive atmosphere, making it feel like you're actually fighting for survival in a post-apocalyptic world. Past survivors writing messages to loved ones, some serious and gut-wrenching, others having too much fun with a Sharpie. Interactive and dynamic props scattered throughout the environment, the red bloody mist created from exploding a horde with a pipe bomb, the change of zombies' clothing depending on the environment, harrowing musical cues to briefly warn you of who's nearby or what's about to happen. hell, I even just found out something while recording for this video which I never realized until 14 years later. In the No Mercy campaign outside in the city, you can hear distant gunshots from possibly other survivors that are struggling to stay alive.
Grabbing a pistol.
Missed it? Let me play it again. The attention to detail that makes the world feel more alive but also hopeless is such a dedication to the world building of this game. Mechanics. One of the most innovative aspects of Left 4 Dead is its cooperative gameplay mechanics. Players must work together as a team to survive the onslaught of zombie hordes, while managing their health, ammunition, and resources. The game's mechanics are simple, yet challenging, with players needing to strategize and communicate effectively with their teammates in order to succeed. But apart from me, because in this video I just played with the AI because I'm socially awkward and I don't even know if anyone's still playing this game as a multiplayer when there's Left 4 Dead 2. But anyway, the game's AI director is another standout feature which dynamically adjusts the difficulty and pacing of the game based on the player's performance. This creates a unique and thrilling gameplay experience that keeps players on their toes. One minute you think you have it all sorted out, and then the next, several special infected decided to all attack you at once and create a clusterfuck of a situation. Speaking of special infected, there's 5 in total, all with their special characteristics and abilities, and all that create their own special kind of PTSD and anxiety for everyone. The Boomer, aka the average American. Slow moving and obese, an extremely bloated fat bastard in where their mutation has caused them to produce immense quantities of bile which they attempt to vomit on the survivors, temporarily blinding them and summoning a small horde if puked on. Though fragile and slow, the Boomer can be dangerous, and if you are too close when you kill them, they blow up and cover you all in that special sauce. The Hunter, aka the parkour enthusiast. Agile and fast, with incredible strength and agility. Don't walk alone though, or you will get a struggle cuddle by this guy down a dark alleyway trying to sell you his parkour montage DVD. The Smoker, aka lung cancer and hentai in one. The Smoker is a special infected, characterized by his extremely long tongue, which grabs and tightens you to death if you're not too careful. The Witch, aka please shut the fuck up, please shut the fuck up, please shut the fuck up. A special infected that wishes she was part of the Me Too movement, who won't stop crying, and if you piss her off enough, will bitch slap the fuck out of you. And finally, the Tank, aka if Liver King never got exposed. Arguably the most powerful special infected in the game due to his combined brute force and agility. Unless the team works together to take the Tank down, it can wipe out entire squads. The Tank's only strategy is brute force. Find the survivors, pummel them to death, repeat. Oh, he also throws boulders and cars at you too. Moving on to the game's premise, Left 4 Dead's storyline is set in a post-apocalyptic world ravaged by a deadly virus that has turned most of the population into zombies. The game's campaign mode is divided into several chapters, each with its own unique setting and challenges, culminating in a final escape to safety. Disclaimer, I'm only showing footage from the first mission, but here's some snippets of all the other mission locations and settings. Alright, where were we? Oh yeah. What makes the game's premise so effective is the way it is communicated through the game's environment and the characters' interactions. The world is filled with hauntingly beautiful visuals, from the decaying urban landscapes to the eerie rural countryside. The characters themselves are compelling and memorable, each with their own personalities, motivations, and backstories. The game's characters are not just cookie-cutter archetypes, but well-written and well-acted individuals who are both relatable and engaging. From the wisecracking biker Francis, who hates everything to the college student Zoe, to the black version of Shaun from Shaun of the Dead, and personally my favourite, Bill, the Vietnam War vet with an amazing beard and probably who suffers from PTSD whenever he picks up an M16.
Congratulations, you just triggered a Vietnam flashback.
Each character is unique and memorable with their own strengths and weaknesses. Players become invested in their survival as their characters' witty banter and individual quirks, creating an emotional connection to their avatars. Finally, let's discuss the game's plot. While not the most complex story, it is still effective in driving the game's narrative forward. The objective is simple.
Shoot zombies and escape.
No, but seriously, survive the zombie apocalypse and make it to safety. However, the game's story is conveyed through the characters' interactions and the environment, creating a sense of urgency and tension that keeps players engaged. The game's final escape sequences is particularly memorable, as players must fight their way through an army of zombies while waiting for rescue, which I totally did not fail 3 or 4 times in a row. Conclusion. Left 4 Dead is a game that has had a lasting impact on the gaming industry. Its innovative, cooperative gameplay mechanics, immersive aesthetics, compelling characters, and effective storytelling make it a must-play for any gamer. It's a game that has set the standard for zombie shooter games, and one that continues to be loved by gamers worldwide. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this in-depth analysis of what makes Left 4 Dead such a great game. If you haven't played Left 4 Dead before, I highly recommend you give it a try. The game is still available on Steam and Xbox Game Pass and all whatever the fuck that, there's so many freaking things you can buy a game on now. And its multiplayer mode continues to be popular choice for gamers to this day. I don't know about this game because I didn't do it, but last time I played Left 4 Dead 2 there was pretty decent amount of players on there. The game's community is also still active with mods and custom campaigns being created to this day, adding even more content to the game. Left 4 Dead is a game that truly stands the test of time. Whether you're a fan of zombie shooter games or just looking for a fun cooperative experience with friends, Left 4 Dead is a game that is sure to provide hours of entertainment. And it also made you realise that Valve's developers kind of carried the entire 2 games together and not the people who made the shit show that was Back 4 Blood. Yikes. All in all, great game. It was fun to finally actually play it again. I give it 4 fingers out of 5. See what I did there? Oh my fucking god. Jesus Christ.
Meleter.
This, right here, is a game released 1993 is a part of a quite prevalent Forza franchise. On Steam, the game has about 20 reviews. The primary objective is to beat races that consist of multiple interesting game modes such as time trial, time trial, time trial, time trial, and endurance time trial. The first thing you see when you boot up this game is a very 2004 to 2010 Xbox Live era menu. All that is missing is some overly loud The game features 65 tracks by default, of which a larger portion are the most basic type of race. They are split up into 5 difficulties, labeled as colors of flags the same way a ski course would be marked. You can actually play up to the red difficulty tracks without doing anything else beforehand, but you need to get good to do the hardest tracks. I did not get good. As you saw in the menu, you can also play online. There are quite a few online servers you can join. They provide quite a lot of replayability and content for the game, allowing you to experience many community-created obstacle courses, most filled with oversized ramps and jumps. I'll go into the history of the fandom surrounding the game, but first I need to talk about the company behind it, Nadio. A company founded in phrase right now. Back to the game. As mentioned earlier, just about everything is some sort of time trial. However, they do vary quite a bit. Some are more focused on pure speed, some take place on rally courses which are not suitable for your tires, and some revolve around tight twists and turns. In any case, I can't crash into a ghost to hit them off course.
Darn, just one more page and I would have finished this book.
With that in mind, this game nails something quite important, making it effortless to restart the race. You just need to press the backspace key and you'll spawn back at the starting line, or the enter key if you instead overflow a checkpoint like a buffoon. It makes the overall experience a fun challenge, trying again and again to get a good enough time for that gold medal, rather than a chore like it would be in a lesser game. I definitely retried some of these an embarrassing amount of times. However... okay, I got nothing there. Should I talk about the physics? Nah. Eventually, the track stopped being a Formula 0.5 experience and more a cruel act of an omniscient 16-year-old with a track editor. The contraptions range from loop-de-loops to turns where you are flung into the air beforehand to full-on airborne sideswipes. On the topic of a track editor, here is the track editor. It is always cool to see one in any racing game, especially one where the tracks are so odd. The controls are definitely something to get used to, barely being more intuitive than understanding the distorted reality that is time and space. But you can do some cool stuff like this. Let me just go over a few minor points in rapid fire succession before I forget. Yes, there is a paid upgrade called This allows you to join from more than just a smaller list of free zone servers. You can choose from a list of pre-selected car appearances if you are too ashamed of being born in Russia. There is also a more proper vehicle editor hidden in this menu, but I did not bother using it. Why don't you do that instead? The keyboard bindings are in the profile menu for some unknown reason. Maybe the UI designer was inhaling gas-scented perfume, just like this. There is a party play option. Here's how many hours I played this game with people I actually know, so I'll just skip it for now. The game has music. It is fine. It fits. Some of it can even be considered a bop. I'll probably still not download it on Yandex Music. The last button is the quit button. Did you know that if you click it, then choose the no option 5 times, you will unlock the secret ability to realize you will be a fucking idiot. So, what is my verdict on this little game from 2012? I would say it is worth your time. If you want something that can easily run on your old Toshiba or oversized Dell, play around with a decent map editor, participate in an active online community, and try out a variety of diverse and interesting tracks, then this is the right game for you. If you want to hear a relatively mediocre licensed soundtrack, then you can play a modern Need for Speed game instead. Now Zany, I beg of you, please release my siblings.
Milkman.
Church, a place of worship, a place to fellowship with your fellow brethren, hosted by a trustable, welcoming pastor whom you can expel your frustrations of the world upon. Devil May Cry 4 is a hand-mangling character action game that emphasizes skill and running. So much running. DMC4 stars that classic white-haired protagonist you've grown to know and love.
You got one part of that wrong. This is not Dante.
This is Nero, and Nero has a secret. He jacks off way too much. Nero's gameplay consists of cutting board style chopping with a sword named the Red Queen, blowing stuff up with his comically large revolver named the Blue Rose, and showing his enemies a new definition of gorilla grip with his Devil Bringer. The Red Queen has the ability to be charged by revving it like a motorcycle, and whoever's idea this was, I commend you because this is cool as hell. You can also charge the Red Queen by revving right after attacking. The timing is very strict, but if you want to play Nero, you're gonna have to learn it. The Devil Bringer is Nero's stroking arm, like I said, having the ability to snatch enemies like Troll Sammy's chain. It also has its own special grapple attacks, from standard slams to literally ripping enemies apart. The most important part of a DMC game is the style meter. Style is utilized in combat and increases the more you switch up your moveset as you destroy your enemy. If you get hit, you'll immediately take a big decrease on your stop point, so try your best to avoid that. And funny enough, this game makes it harder to get better if you're bad at it. Let me explain. After each mission, you'll get a score based off of time to complete, style, and red orbs you collect. You collect red orbs by defeating enemies and destroying items in the environment that drop them. If you don't get enough red orbs, your overall score goes down. Your score determines how many Proud Souls you'll acquire at the end of each mission, and those Proud Souls are used to buy abilities. No abilities means less variety in combat. Less variety in combat means less style means a lower score means fewer Proud Souls, and the cycle continues. So Nero is the newcomer to the series, DMC4 being his debut title, and you'll quickly learn that even though he's an angsty teen, he can hold the same charm as his predecessors, even though he yells a lot. You'll play as Nero for the first 12 chapters of the game, rampaging through a multitude of 3 locations: Fortuna City, Fortuna Castle, and Midas Forest. You'll see some iconic and bizarre things occur through your journey in Fortuna, things that'll either have you confused or doubled over laughing.
What the hell is this? What's the point of packing a sword like that if you aren't even gonna use it?
Alright, story time. Knights of the Sword. Sanctus, Credo, Agnus, these dudes, and also these dudes. All rule over the island Fortuna. Nero is living in Fortuna with NBA All-Star Kyrie Irving. Dante shows up, 1D Sanctus, Dante dips. Credo tells Nero to find Dante. Nero runs through all 3 locations doing some of the worst puzzles known to man. Nero finds the Yamato, Kyrie Irving gets kidnapped by Sanctus. Nero starts looking for Kyrie Irving and runs into Dante. Dante asks for the Yamato. Nero says no. Dante says okay. Nero runs into the Savior, which is a giant statue of David knockoff. Nero beats the lever spots out of Sanctus, but wins because he used Kyrie Irving as a shield. Nero is entrapped in the flesh prison, as every Catholic priest's wet dream. Through the story, you'll have bosses to fight. From Fortuna, it's Burial, a fiery lion centaur with a sword. Fortuna Castle features Bale, a damned toad. And Midas Forest features Echidna, a combination of a flower and a snake. And by the way, wood. Now there are actually 4 more boss fights against Credo, Agnus, Dante, and Sanctus. So take everything that I've told you, all the locations, all the bosses and stuff, and flip it around, because now that you're playing as Dante, you'll be playing the game in reverse order. I'm gonna keep it a complete and total buck with you. I absolutely suck as Dante. I am terrible at combos with him, and my gameplay is so bad, I don't even want to do it. Dante has way more going on with him than Nero. But this is Nero's story, so I'm gonna make this quick. Dante has 3 melee weapons, 2 of which are acquired through boss fights. He uses Rebellion, Gilgamesh, and Lucifer. He has 3 guns as well, Ebony and Ivory, Coyote A, and Pandora. Dante uses something special called style switching, which opens up his combat capabilities to the maximum. These styles are Trickster, Gunslinger, Swordmaster, and Royal Guard. You run through the story as Dante in reverse order like I said, backtracking through everything Nero's already done, fighting the bosses he's already fought except you kill them this time. On the way, you retrieve the Yamato, the same one Nero had, which unlocks another style for Dante. Now you fight all the way to the Savior, that big statue of David knockoff, and discover that you cannot damage it from the outside. So he sends the Yamato inside to the Savior, to Nero. Continuing your playthrough as Nero, Nero must then go up the stairway to heaven and go fight the exact same bosses for the 3rd time. Wow! Now you'll fight Sanctus for the 2nd time and win, of course. And it was here at the end of the game that I learned that Nero took orders from the actual holiness.
Mods, crush the skull, thank you.
And that's Devil May Cry 4. The version I reviewed was the special edition released in 2015. I bought this version years ago and I'm not spending $20 more for less content. So I'll only discuss the content released in 2008 version, which is the main campaign. Overall, DMC4 is a fun and rewarding experience that stands the test of time. You should go buy it. Or don't. Thanks for watching though.
Colemancheu.
Man, I only got 4 minutes to talk about my favorite game from 2008. Dead Space. Of course, I know the remake came out, but we're not here to play compare and contrast. Well, maybe a little, but only when I mention it. Let's cut to the chase, though. Rating? 10 out of 10. Oh, wait, you want an explanation for it? Okay, all right. Dead Space is a third-person horror game that focuses on atmosphere and player input. Like your Half-Lifes and your Prey, you take control of a silent protagonist, Isaac Clarke. He's your run-of-the-mill everyman, and he's a whiz at engineering, and he's also able to use normal power tools to stop a horrible invasion of alien parasites infesting the ship. Simple enough. Dead Space is all about immersion. HUD? There is none, except for your sick, nasty rig. Everyone's got one. Shows your health and your stasis, and your ammo comes up on your gun, where Isaac can see. But how do you see the rig if you're in the suit? It's on your back. It's a little something called suspension of disbelief, my friend. Why don't you take that Funko Pop out of your ass and try it sometime, huh? Now you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, how do I win against these horrible odds? Well, that's simple. Kill! Yes, kill! Yes, kill! Stomp on them! Kill them! Fucking shoot them! Fucking tear off their limbs! It's fucking easy, dude. Like, this game's visceral, right? Like, they had to make a whole new studio just because of how visceral the game was. Dead Space is so baller that you have to run around the whole ship doing stuff, right? Like shooting asteroids. You gotta jump from wall to wall in 0G. Now I could talk about things like how you upgrade your stuff from power nodes and you find them in secret rooms or stuff like that. Or I could talk about how partway through the game, this big tentacle comes out and scares you and grabs you and drags you down the hallway, and you have to aim in a specific way to hit the tentacle's weak spot to free yourself. And since you're being dragged, you're on a time limit, you know, and that makes your heart race, because that's what horror does. And I could even talk about the entire sequence in hydroponics where you have to find these wheezing necromorphs who are like people who have, like, their lungs have exploded out of their back and they're just exhaling in agonizing pain, spewing out like toxic fumes, where you have to navigate this area as your oxygen's depleting. But I don't want to spoil the whole game, right? Dead Space is a absolute certifiable banger. And if you want to play it, I'd highly recommend that you play the 2008 original. And I guess after you're done with that, if you really, really want to, you could just play the remake that came out earlier this year. But Dead Space is a game that ages like fine wine. There was no reason for it to have a remake, but me being the starved Dead Space fan that I am, I'm kind of glad that there's more interest in the game. But just between you and me, and this is talking to you, Motive, don't remake Dead Space 2 or 3 at all. They're fine. They're fine games. I know Dead Space 3 was ass, but I don't want a Dead Space 3 remake. I want Dead Space 4. I want Dead Space 4. Give me Dead Space 4, you
SheevTalks.
Hey fellas, so listen, my good pal Zany asked me if I wanted to be in one of his videos, and he told me he's doing this big project talking about games that released in 2008, which naturally, of course, meant that when I agreed to it, I ended up with The Force Unleashed, because of course, I'm the Star Wars guy. No, in actuality, I chose this game because I think it's really, really bad, and I'm tired of pretending it's not. So now I'm gonna explain to all of you why I think that is in about, say, 5 to 7 minutes. And what I aim to accomplish here is to explain how the story of this game doesn't really make any sense when you stop to think about it, nor does it fit with the overall canon. And yes, I know that this game came out before the new Disney canon, but I'm aiming higher than that. I'm talking about the movies themselves that this game fucks with. As far as gameplay mechanics and the like, that's not really my area of expertise, and I don't think I could give an objective analysis on that anyway, since I played this game on the Wii when I was a kid, and that's probably the shittiest system you could possibly experience experience this game on. And if any of you out there are familiar with my work, then you probably know that I have a passing disdain for one such show called Obi-Wan Kenobi 2022. One of my biggest criticisms of that show is that the very premise relies on the Empire finding out that Bail Organa is actually secretly in contact with a Jedi in hiding, and not just any old Jedi, but the most wanted man in the entire galaxy, with whom Darth Vader himself has a very personal bone to pick. Information like that making its way over to the Empire would surely spell doom for Bail and his entire family, and that kind of fucks with, Star Wars. So then would it surprise you to find out that Kenobi isn't the first thing to mess up this little piece of continuity? It was actually done here first, and I've held this criticism against The Force Unleashed since long before Kenobi came along and reared its ugly head. You see, the entire plot of this game is centered around this guy Galen Merrick, aka Starkiller, who's actually Vader's secret apprentice. We play as him as he goes on various missions for Vader, including rallying all the main leaders of the still divided rebellion who pose an actual threat to the Empire should they ever band together. They do just that in this very game, thanks to Galen, but alas, it turns out to have all been a ploy by Vader that even we weren't privy to bring all of Palpatine's enemies together so that they could be crushed in one fell swoop. And among said rebels is, you guessed it, Bail Organa. And he, along with the rest of the rebels, are captured by Vader and brought to the first Death Star to be executed. That kind of fucks with a lot when you realize that the Organas were still official members of the Imperial Senate by the time of A New Hope. And as far as we could tell, Vader hadn't had any way of proving that they were working with the rebels until he managed to catch Leia with the Death Star plans. But I think seeing Bail with all the other rebel leaders making an official declaration of war against the Empire would be proof enough. I don't know, just a thought. Also, I don't really know why Palpatine would have the rebels taken to the Death Star rather than just have Vader kill them all right then and there. You run the risk of them escaping, united more than ever in this cause to destroy you, which is ultimately what ended up happening. If you'd have just killed them on Corellia, the rebellion would have been finished, and then the OT never would have happened. Good job, dingus. But anyway, the rebel leaders were all captured and brought to the Death Star, but Starkiller survived and had himself a little force vision that told him what the Death Star was, and I guess, like, where to find it also. Because, like, he only just learned it existed, and it could be anywhere in space, but apparently they just show up in time to save the rebels, so that's pretty lucky. And then Starkiller shows up and fights Vader and kicks the shit out of him because he's a game developer's overpowered OC who's so strong that he can go toe-to-toe with the Emperor, and he actually wins. The only reason Palpatine doesn't die here is because he's in the original trilogy, and so they have Rom Coda say that it's not the Jedi way and to not give in to anger, you know, all that shit. It's basically just a retread of Return of the Jedi's final act, and it's frustrating to watch because it doesn't feel earned. And like, I get why Luke refused to fight the Emperor in Return of the Jedi because that was like the whole conflict of the third act, but here it doesn't really make sense or fit the context of the story, and it's frustrating to watch because this entire thing with the rebellion coming together is about overthrowing Palpatine and destroying the Empire, which you could do right here if you just struck him down. And look, I'm not saying I hate Starkiller as a character, but I do think he's OP as fuck and should never have been added into the canon at that time. If you wanted to have this game be some kind of non-canonical campaign exploring an alternate version of events, then fine, but that's not what they did. And to be honest, I think the existence of Starkiller has made online discourse surrounding Star Wars infinitely worse from every single direction. You can't talk about any character being overpowered without this motherfucker being brought up, and it's annoying because I don't think his power set is a good thing either. Also, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it's within Vader's character to groom a secret apprentice so that he can overthrow Palpatine. I think that's something he wanted to do back when Padme was alive and he had something to live for, and it's a passion that was reignited when he found out that he had a son. But for those 20 years where he thought he'd lost everything and everyone he'd ever loved, Palpatine was basically the only person Vader had left, as twisted as that is. And fighting for his cause, restoring his distorted idea of order, is the only purpose Vader thought he had left. He was never a traditional Sith who vied for greater power just for the sake of having it. Destroying the Emperor just to sit on an empty throne with nobody left to anchor him isn't something I think Vader ever really wanted. But hey, that's just me, and again, I could be wrong. But anyway, I think I've taken up enough of Zany's time, so I'll call it here. This was fun, and maybe someday I'll be back to talk about the significantly worse game, The Force Unleashed 2.
KindaJesus. Oh, all right. What do you want, YouTube algorithm monster?
YouTube algorithm monster? What do you mean, you Portuguese crackpots?
Zani? How the fuck did you get my number?
It's not important. Listen, the April project's coming up. You in?
Sure, I'm in. What's it about?
Games from 2008, and I've narrowed your games down to 2 options. Option 1 is Haze, which I...
Second option. There's literally nothing worse.
Great. I'm glad someone's covering Turok. Can't make a list of 2008 games without that one. KJ? You there?
I fucking hate you, Zani. The original Turok came out in 1997, and it was all about this one dude that travels through time to kick some ass and restore peace to the world. Turok 2 follows that same exact formula while improving on pacing and world variety. Turok 3 is considered by many a hidden gem, due to the fact that it was released in the year 2000 on the Nintendo 64, a period when gamers already left for a different console. But it still managed to improve on a already working formula with even more variety in settings and enemies. Turok, the 2008 reboot, takes the 3 other games to a nice dinner, then takes them home and murders them in their sleep in favor of the new shiny pair of boobs named Call and Duty. And then makes fun of its own name, because why not spit a bit more in the classics?
Now I want you to meet Turok.
Developed by Propaganda Games, the developers responsible for Turok Reboot, Tron Evolution, and... nope, that's it. They closed in 2011. I wonder why. Turok 2008 is supposed to be this modern adaptation of the aforementioned Turok games from the 90s, and by modern adaptation they meant have absolutely nothing to do with the source material, but still try and lie to those Turok fans by sharing nothing but name. It didn't work. According to the Wikipedia page, because the game literally lost my interest in the story from the moment the name Turok gets laughed at, you play as Joseph Turok, tasked alongside your fellow space marine... Sorry, I meant fellow members of the Whiskey Company, nice name, and you're tasked with apprehending a dangerous criminal by the name of Roland Kane. On our way to the planet where this generic ass villain is situated, we get shot down, and we crash land in the planet's Terraformed. That also happens to be... overrun by genetically modified dinosaurs. Yada yada yada, main villain kills the protagonist's brother, yada yada yada, turns out Turok is connected with his ancestors, revenge plot ensues, fight with a T-Rex at the end. There, saved you around 5 hours of gameplay, because this is crap. But listen, I hear you, okay? You wanna know about the gameplay part of the Pew Pew game. It's a special kind of dog shit. A pristine type of dog shit, almost lost to time at this point, where we're in the middle of a world run by freaking dinosaurs, and our number one enemy is... genetic guards. That all either spawn literally in front of you, or gather themselves into a group for you to pew-pew them as fast as possible.
Remind me not to get on your bad side, Turok.
Oh, and of course, who couldn't forget the clone car spawning system? You know the classic clone car spawning system, right? It's where the game tells you to defend a specific area, while the enemy hilariously spawns over and over again for the sake of a quote-unquote challenge. Except in this game, the clone car is in every single mission. And what about the dinosaurs, KJ? They're great! if you like cheesing the hell out of them with the one-shot knife you have that literally overpowers a goddamn sniper rifle, because if you don't like relying in Uncle R and Jesus to see if the animation that plays is the killing animation or the dead animation, might as well Alt F4 out of the game, because you're gonna be doing that a lot. Oh, before you comment away on exaggerating, here's me with a freaking futuristic shotgun at close range on a dinosaur from the 3rd level! Do you see the issue here? Oh yeah, the classic Turok weapon, the bow. How do you fuck up a bow and arrow? Well, just have it do exactly the opposite of what a precise weapon is. Have it have a spread almost as big as a dual-wielding pair of assault rifles, then allow me to not pick up my arrows back, and then wrap everything up with not being able to one-shot enemies if you don't take the 1.5 seconds to wind the bow to full. And there's your recipe for a goddamn mediocre as fuck bow. I guess all I have to talk about now is how the game looks. For a game made in 2008, it looks exactly like an FPS made in 2008. AKA a jungle setting with a shit-colored filter added in because the comparisons to COD 4 need to start somewhere, right? I get it, okay? I know I am looking at this through the perspective of someone who loves boomer shooters and played the original trilogy back when I was the size of a vacuum cleaner. But is it really my fault when you name your game after said trilogy with the intent of modernizing the FPS classics? In the middle of all of this criticism, I can actually see a good game. For real. There is sparkles of a good game right here. But you don't sell games with sparkles. You sell games by paying IGN for a good review. But hey, maybe the next guy has better luck with this game. I've been told he likes beating his meat to God of War with a side of potatoes. What the fuck did I just read?
Mayor Hairbear.
The PSP, probably the best portable console of all time, at least in regards to taking console experiences on the go, with no series doing it better than God of War, with Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta. Now, I prefer Ghost of Sparta, but we're talking 2008 today, so Chains of Olympus it is, which did set a damn good foundation for Kratos' portable crusades. As an 11-year-old, taking God of War on the go was almost as cool as discovering the PSP had an internet browser. I played it non-stop. I mean, it's probably the God of War title I've played through the most, which isn't saying much because it's only 4 hours long, but you get the point. Chains of Olympus was great, but is it really that good to play today? Yeah, it's alright. It's just dated in comparison to the rest of the series, as it's basically God of War 1 on the go, relying on one OP combo to get you through the entire game. Square, square, triangle. It's a god tier combo as it's one of the few to actually stun your enemies. But what Chains of Olympus has that the original does not is the almighty Fister and the flames Kratos farts out. Zeus's Gauntlet, which is a top tier secondary weapon in the whole series and an actual competitor to the Blades of Chaos, and Efret the Persian Genie, which is basically Poseidon's Wrath from the first game, just, well, angrier. The combat is a good time, but you have to bear in mind that by this point God of War 2 had released with gameplay improvements, and so Chains of Olympus can feel like a backstep in that regard, which when you basically remove all puzzles and platforming to focus on combat, yeah, it sticks out. The boss battles are where it's at in God of War though, and in Chains of Olympus they're pretty solid if rather poorly spaced out. The Basilisk and the Persian King are great tutorial tools. They're basic battles but make you feel like an absolute Chad, which is what the series is all about. Charon is also a fun fight, probably the best in the game as he easily casts you aside at first until you get the gauntlet and just pulverize him, and Persephone is a decent challenge, but not the peak, and really Morpheus should have been the final fight, who just vanishes from the game. The gameplay is solid, especially looking at it as just a portable experience. It's actually great, but if you compare it to the rest of the series, it does have issues. Story-wise, this is some pretty weak stuff, which I get it's hard to make for a pick up and play game with a compelling story when the threat of 10 to 15 minute sessions is a concern. But there is so much potential here to be great, they just don't successfully pull it off. I mean, you have the sun god kidnapped, Morpheus is taking over the land, Kratos' late daughter keeps appearing in visions and mirages. There's something here, but you never feel like you save Helios. Morpheus, as I said, just vanishes, leaving Persephone to become a late villain replacement, who does the classic villain trope of telling Kratos all her plans when you could have left him none the wiser and actually succeeded. And while I love Kratos and Calliope reuniting in Elysium and that threat of Kratos can be with his daughter until Elysium soon falls or leave her to ensure her safety, that QTE with the two of them is laughable and takes away from that tough moment from our man Kratos. It all feels rushed along, and I know 4 hours isn't a lot of time to deal with, but the story should have been simplified instead of trying to be grandiose and failing. I like a lot of the ideas, and the scenery this story inspires is still fantastic, but it feels like they needed more time to develop them properly. But at the end of the day, for Ready at Dawn to bring the God of War series to a portable platform and still have it feel like a genuine console title is something that cannot be overstated. It is still a good time to play today, it's just, well, been surpassed by most of the series. Most of Ascension. Like it should. Can I see why my 11-year-old self would play this game over and over again? Absolutely. It's God of War on the go. In a portable market where the same title wasn't even remotely the same game as the consoles, Killzone went tactical, Resistance became a third-person shooter, this was God of War on the PS2, just now I could play it wherever I wanted, and that is something that in 2008 was very special.
Voiy Reviews.
Are responsible for both monkey AIDS and 9/11. Also, who the fuck is this Voiy Reviews guy? Nobody fucking talks that way, pal. Not here in America. What are you, fucking British or...
You know, it's funny to think of a time where people really believed video games were responsible for violence. I mean, look at me. I've played a ton of video games, and despite what some would have you believe, I've not killed anyone yet. No series was more synonymous with the video games are murder simulators moral panic than Grand Theft Auto, with its depictions of the things you knew were cool when you were 12. Speaking of cool things from when I was 12, today we're looking at Grand Theft Auto 4, a game that is somehow both 15 years old, and yet only one GTA ago. Let's get into it. Grand Theft Auto 4 is an open-world action game, with elements of driving, shooting, and warnings of the dangers of public streets. You play as Niko Bellic, a veteran troubled by his involvement in one of the many Yugoslav wars, who fled to America to start a new life. However, this American dream falls apart damn near instantly, with Niko quickly descending into a world of crime, intrigue, and more requests to go bowling than any man should be subject to. Throughout the game you meet a colorful cast of characters, who will wait patiently as you fuck around pushing people in front of train. Grand Theft Auto 4 stays true to the classic GTA style established since its jump to 3D, while making changes to take advantage of new hardware. While the game possesses the classic selection of weapons and vehicles, the way they used to, quote-unquote, interact with the world has changed significantly. The game introduces a cover system, very much the style of the time, allowing you to hide behind walls and browse ringtones on your phone during firefights. Also, the game introduces ragdoll physics, and frankly, I think it's fairly self-explanatory why that's a good addition.
People, hurry! Get in the way! I'm committing vehicular man-murder helper!
GTA 4 excels in the way it delivers a dense and varied experience, while managing to balance its various aspects. No doubt thanks to Rockstar's humane 100-hour-a-week work crunch. While Liberty City is a smaller map compared to previous titles, it is absolutely packed with content. Whether it be the story missions, a gritty story of betrayal, and the death of the American dream, the various activities available, such as pool, darts, and drink driving, or the classic GTA activity of massacring randoms in a hospital. GTA 4 provides a variety of gameplay options that feel equally developed. That's because the core gameplay mechanics are fun to use. Thanks to the physics engine, everything in GTA 4 has an incredible sense of weight. Weapons feel like they pack a real punch, with shots realistically affecting both enemies and the surrounding environment. Even though much maligned driving is fantastic in my opinion, whether it be how fun it feels to weave through traffic, or playing hit the man with the ice cream van, or going skull first through the windshield of a car, the engine makes the gameplay incredibly fun, even if it has its occasional goofy moments. To be honest, I don't have any massive problems with GTA 4, only a few minor issues I'll get to in a minute. However, I will use this segment to bitch about the complete edition on PC, and how it's a fucking body mess. It offers a vast array of weird and wonderful glitches. I've had your classic inexplicable crashes during gameplay, which definitely didn't upset me at all. I've had to restart the game, because the car on the opening mission kept getting sucked into hell, and lost significant progress when the game broke completely, and Niko decided to start unloading ammo like a Balkan wedding. However, my issues with the game itself are minimal. The lack of checkpoints during missions can be frustrating, considering how often you'll manage to find the zaniest way to fail midway through the longer ones. Additionally, certain features from previous titles aren't present, such as the skills or statistics from San Andreas, or the ability to fly a plane, though that might be understandable considering the size of the map and its location. Finally, the friendship system can be really annoying, especially considering their almost magical ability to call at the worst possible time, wanting to play darts.
Hey man, me. We should play each other at darts.
Personally, I think GTA 4's graphics have aged like fine wine. It shows its age sometimes with how desaturated and brown it can look, but let's be honest. New York City, the inspiration of the game's setting, is a brown grimy place, so the late 2000s graphical trend works in the game's favor, especially considering its bleak portrayal of America. Despite its size, the map is varied and packed with detail, with areas feeling distinct so as to avoid becoming stale. It holds up graphically, even if it occasionally suffers from texture pop-ins, though I'm not sure how much the remaster for the collector edition is responsible for this. The game's sound design is really well done. Foregoing traditional background music, GTA 4 offers a more grounded experience, placing greater emphasis on environmental ambience and punchy sound effects which might be lost with an original score. Not that the game doesn't have any music. As with any GTA title, 4 offers a series of radio stations, each with their own distinct flavor, with my personal favorites being Liberty Rock and Vice City FM. However, for those playing on PC, there is also a custom radio option, allowing you to get some use out of all those stolen MP3s you've collected. Overall, GTA 4 is still a quality title, even after all these years. The sheer depth of content in the base game alone is impressive, allowing it to be enjoyable both as a narrative experience and as a chaotic sandbox. And if all that GTA 4 has to offer isn't enough for you, the game also has 2 major DLCs, each offering a whole new story and additional content. So GTA 4 is well worth a look if you're in the market for a game to become invested in. Anyway, I'll be off now. I'm going to enjoy a nice quiet evening, listening to the dulcet tones of some radio lunatic. Now, if you'll excuse me.
And it was absolutely awful. I mean, it was 5 minutes of complete nonsense that was offensive to both my eyes, my ears, and my goddamn American soul. Honestly, I hope the next one is better than that garbage.
Orion Centurion.
Hello, welcome to the top 10 things I love about Saints Row 2. Number 10, Terror. Terror is very sexy and I want to make love to her. Number 9, the map. The map is very big and expansive. It has lots of fun side quests and interesting landmarks. Number 8, Shaundi. Shaundi is very sexy and I want to make love to her. Number 7, Friendly Fire. Friendly Fire is the best shop in the game because it has lots of fun weapons. Number 6, Aisha. Aisha is very sexy and I want to make love to her. Number 5. Number 5, Pierce. Pierce is a funny character. Number 4, Julius. Julius has a very sexy voice and I want to make love to it. Number 3, Gang and Vehicle Customization. It's so much better in this game than the first. I hope they never make it redundant in future installments. Number 2, Carlos. Carlos is a very loyal companion and friend throughout the whole game. Rest in peace, Carlos. I wish I had a piece of that ass. Number 1, Johnny Gat. Johnny Gat is very sexy and I want to make love to him. What did you think of my top 10 list? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to Zanyverse if you have enjoyed this video.
Media Mana.
War. War never changes.
Fallout 3 by no means was the first post-apocalyptic RPG. After all, it's a product of an already established universe, reimagined with a first-person POV and an entirely different set of mechanics, though it succeeded in taking staple concepts from previous installments and transplanting them into an unexplored setting of the Capital Wasteland. Because while it may differ with its emphasis on environmental storytelling and comparatively faster-paced gameplay, Fallout 3 at its core is categorically defined by a key element that is at the very heart of this franchise. And that is player choice. Like any competent RPG, your actions can influence and affect not only your character, but the people around you, or even at times the entire wasteland at large. It presents the player with a myriad of options at their disposal and has them consider every potential outcome, all while implementing reasonable limitations in order to incentivize specific builds and multiple playthroughs. New Vegas would further improve upon this initial blueprint by incorporating a fleshed-out faction system, a more coherent main narrative, and by keeping in the spirit of the original title's level of world-building, only for Fallout 4 and 76 to take massive step backwards in those respective categories. Though that's a topic for another video. The main purpose of this one is to highlight how player choice in Fallout 3 can have the game trail off in numerous directions, whether it be from a narrative or gameplay standpoint. And one of the more intricate quest lines in the game can actually be experienced early on when further exploring Megaton. Should you decide to take on Moira Brown's offer, you can tackle the Wasteland Survival Guide quest from multiple angles. You can stick to the set path of going to various locations to collect food and medicine, gather information and test out prototype weapons, gaining various rewards for your endeavors, some of which can produce some rather interesting mutations depending on how far you're willing to carry out certain tasks. You can also simply lie to Moira while creating the book, either to skip certain portions of the quest, or to purposely sabotage the project altogether, because you're a greasy little shithead trying to make some quick caps out in the wasteland. If your speech is high enough, you can also convince Moira midway through the quest to stop working on the survival guide entirely, granting you negative karma and a perk that reduces enemy critical hit chances on you by 50%, which, not gonna lie, is realistically probably the best perk to nab from the quest, if not the entire game. Also, as an interesting side note that I didn't even know about until making this video, but apparently Moira will still continue to work on the survival guide even after detonating the bomb in Megaton. She'll just move to the ghoul city of Underworld and still continue to give you quest objectives. And once the book is finally finished, you'll randomly encounter a Wastelander who will comment on how much it helped, or didn't help them, based on all the dialogue options you chose while making the guide. The amount of thought and care poured into all these branching outcomes for just this one side quest alone is pretty immense, and it's only further complemented by how internally consistent Moira is as a character. For having lived her entire life in the capital wasteland, Moira's painfully naive as how to actually survive in it. But she's determined and motivated to help others at whatever the cost, even in the midst of her entire life getting devoured by a nuclear explosion. There's a comical and, depending on what route you take, somewhat tragic irony at play here. Even when dissuaded from finishing the guide, she still resigns from doing it because she thinks that's ultimately the best means for her to help others. This quality of character design and level of player choice is what essentially endeared so many newcomers to the world of Fallout at the time, myself included. However, that's not to say that player choice doesn't also come at the game's detriment. It's no secret at this point that a considerable amount of Fallout 3's content can just be skipped after leaving the vault by immediately heading straight to Vault 112, which could have easily been rectified by just adding in a simple safeguard, like requiring a key to unlock Smith Casey's garage. But for whatever reason, the devs just left it unlocked, so theoretically it's possible for someone to never experience whole story missions, characters, XP, and explorable areas on their first playthrough by virtue of just exploring the map. It's a pretty glaring design flaw, no matter how you slice it. It's far from being the only issue Fallout 3 is plagued with, but it is definitely one of the more egregious ones. It'd be like if you could skip most of The Witcher 3's main storyline by immediately finding Ciri. Sure, returning players have the luxury of being able to ignore taking that path, but I still think that's a pretty demanding ask of the game. Regardless, Fallout 3 should still be judged for the sum of all of its parts, because while it suffers from admittedly rather shoddy gunplay and much worse world building than I initially remembered, the game in many ways makes up for that by being environmentally rich with vibrant characters and immersive areas to explore. Its non-linear quest design makes the Capital Wasteland one of the more truly unique RPG experiences the genre has to offer, even to this day. Future iterations would eventually come along and change things, for better or for worse, but war never changes.
Once again, we fucking did it. I'd like to thank everyone who took part in this massive undertaking of a project. As always, all of their respective channels and socials are linked down in the description. Please go chuck them a sub, they all deserve it. Once again, big thanks to Cole for being an executive G, Hunk for once again showing that he is a man of many talents, literally learning to paint in Photoshop for this one video, and Vexas for having an abnormally large penis. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, and if you enjoyed, please leave a like, a comment, and maybe even subscribe if you want to see more of my kooky pieces of visual media. Oh, and this time we don't say goodbye. Next year, same date, same place. I've been Xaniverse, and I've got a mega collab to organize.
Okay, degrading me to a Marvel end credits scene is where I draw the line. I want out right now. This is no longer funny.